If everybody could take their seat, please, we'll begin in just one moment. Good morning, Democrats. Good morning, Democratic National Committee members, and welcome to our summer meeting here in the great state of Texas. I hereby call this meeting of the Democratic National Committee to order. At this point, please rise if you are able for the presentation of the colors by the John B. Connolly High School JROTC. I'd now like to ask Vice Chair Artie Blanco to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes.
At this time, yes. Members, please, at this time, welcome Vice Chair Shasti Conrad to the podium to introduce today's invocation. Shasti?
Good morning. Reverend Dr. Lerone Grosvenor is a global speaker and seasoned leader who has preached across the United Kingdom, the United States, and Africa. He currently serves as the lead pastor of Alpha Church here in Austin, Texas, a role that he has held since 2018. A lifelong learner, Dr. Grosvenor holds a Master of Divinity from Andrews University, an MBA from Baylor University, and a Doctor of Ministry from Payne Theological Seminary. He is also a senior certified professional with the Society for Human Resource Management. From 2021 until just earlier this year, he served as the Chief Culture and Transformation Officer at the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation. He is a member of the Martin Luther King Jr. Board of Preachers of Morehouse College and resides in Texas with his wife, Dr. Crystal Joy Grosvenor, and their daughter, Eden. Please welcome Dr. Grosvenor.
Thank you, Chair Martin, for the gracious invitation to offer prayer at this summer meeting. As I stood in the corner a few minutes ago, I was praying for all of you and your families and sending you good vibes. There's an ancient saying that blessed are the brief, for they shall be invited back. So let us pause for this thoughtful, brief reflection through the avenue of an invocation. Almighty God, you have been our refuge in every generation. And as this summer meeting has convened and now hastens toward its conclusion, after days of gathering, caucusing, listening, and deliberating, we pause amid the urgency of our work to pray for our cities, our states, our countries, whose future summons our service. May America remain a place where every person possesses inherent dignity, where opportunity is not reserved for the fortunate few, where democracy belongs to the people, and where prosperity and happiness may abound for all from sea to shining sea. Lord, our guide and our guard, who neither slumbers nor sleeps, awaken us to the indefatigable work of caring for family, friend, stranger, and neighbor. Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream throughout every community we seek to represent. Strengthen us in fidelity, deepen within us the discipline of public trust and political fiduciary duty. Give us the courage to choose conviction over convenience, service over self-interest, and the common good over temporary advantage. Turn crisis into opportunity, turn distress and grief into compassion, turn hatred into understanding, turn division into dialogue, and turn cynicism into renewed confidence that government at its best can still be an instrument of justice and human flourishing. May our debates be vigorous without becoming vicious. May the diversity of voices gathered here deepen our understanding without diminishing our common purpose. God of justice, mercy, and peace, let this be your will. May we leave this place strengthened for the work before us, faithful to one another and to the nation we are privileged to serve. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
I want to thank Pastor Grosvenor. I was in Memphis, Tennessee when he was the guest pastor there at Mississippi Street Baptist just a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him to join us here today, and I thank him for his words and his invocation. I'd now like to welcome our Associate Chair, Stuart Applebaum, to introduce today's land acknowledgement.
Good morning. I would like to introduce Taylor Trevino, the Voting Rights Senior Advocacy Manager at the Texas Civil Rights Project and Chair of the Indigenous Peoples Caucus of the Texas Democratic Party. An Austin native with a background in public education, Taylor is a dedicated organizer who advocates for voting rights and increased political representation for marginalized communities in Texas. Taylor.
Good morning. This weekend, we gather on the ancestral homelands of the Caddo, Cherokee, Coahuiltecan, Comanche, Lipan Apache, Karankawa, Tonkawa, and Wichita, who call or have called what we now know as Central Texas home. Countless other tribes live and have lived across this state, and we are home to 3 federally recognized tribes: the Isleta del Sur Pueblo, the Kickapoo, and the Alabama Coshada. Indigenous peoples have cared for these lands and waters, have shaped the history and culture of this area, and continue to make invaluable contributions to Austin and to Texas. Despite centuries of genocide, forced displacement and assimilation, and other forms of marginalization, we are still here. It is important not only to acknowledge Native land, but to continue to advocate for Indigenous communities through action, especially in moments like these. Here in Texas, Native American and Indigenous history is being erased from textbooks, and higher education ethnic studies programs are threatened. Our scarce and sacred waters are being stolen for unnecessary and wasteful data centers. The beautiful and historic land along the Rio Grande in the Big Bend region is being destroyed as we speak to make room for border barriers and surveillance technology. Our people, our indigenous siblings from Mexico, Central and South America, and the Caribbean are being abducted, imprisoned, and forcibly removed every single day. That is, if they survive their interactions with the radical racist institution we call ICE, which must be abolished. I call on all of you to help us put an end to this so that we may all live with dignity, respect, and justice. Thank you.
The midterms have begun.
We may need to coin a term stronger than blue wave.
Since last November, we've seen Democrats consistently outperform their numbers from 2024 by 10 points or more. They've flipped local races in deep red states, including one in Texas.
And Republicans are already sounding the alarm about their narrow split chamber control.
If you're a Republican in Congress, you should be running for the hills given this data.
This blue wave is coming.
Democrats turned out in record numbers like we haven't seen in decades. It's an indication that there's a lot of energy in these midterm elections.
Democrats have a clear advantage when voters are asked which party they prefer to control Congress.
The Cook Political Report is now shifting 6 more races in Democrats' direction.
Democrats are revved up and ready to go.
A wave is building. The kind of wave that comes once a generation. When people have been pushed too far and they decide all at once, all together, that enough is enough.
We are seeing a nation where more and more people are beginning to doubt the very idea of America, that every generation should do better than the one before.
Today, the very premise of patriotism is under attack, and we cannot let that happen.
You stand your ground, you get involved, and you never give up on this democracy or each other.
This is what built our republic. This is what democracy is built on.
We will not be bullied, and we are never backing down.
Because this movement is not from the left, it is not from the right, it's from the bottom, and we are rising!
Together, we must protect the middle class. Together, we must protect the American dream.
People across the political spectrum are hungry for a new kind of politics. Not a politics of fear, not a politics of hate, not a politics of division, but a politics of love.
Even in this moment of division, I believe there is so much more that connects us.
Whether you are Democrat, Independent, or Republican, people want the same things.
And if we work together, we can tackle our biggest challenges.
Because when you love this country, you fight for the people who make it work.
So let's roll up our sleeves and get to work.
People are recognizing what's happening right now. They know that our country needs a course correction.
It's time to demand from our leaders that they show empathy to the struggling, compassion to the destitute.
You can build your billionaire ballroom, Donald Trump. You can offer your empty promises like bringing down costs on day one. But know this, Donald Trump, your days in power are numbered. Democrats, I want to take this moment to thank our DNC Secretary, Jason Ray. We all are so lucky to be able to work with him day in and day out. This is the 4th full DNC meeting among a number of standing committee meetings that he and his team have successfully executed in less than a year. So before I turn it over to him, please join me in thanking him and his team for all the work that his office has done. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I'll now turn it over to Jason for the determination of quorum.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and hello, Democrats. We've had a great few days here in Austin with our standing committees, our caucuses, and our councils as we are planning and strategizing to elect Democrats up and down the ballot this November. I want to give a warm thank you to our friends at the Texas Democratic Party and all of our Texas DNC members for welcoming us and showing us such a great time this week. And with that, Mr. Chair, I am pleased to report we do indeed have a quorum of members present today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Before I begin my remarks, let me also just ask that the great chairman of the state of Texas stand up and be recognized for hosting us, Chairman Kendall Scudder. Thank you, Kendall. Thank you for everything you did to host it. What a great meeting. Now, hello, Democrats. I hope everyone has had a great time these past 3 days in Austin. As I mentioned, Chair Kendall Scudder and the entire team at the Texas Democratic Party has been such incredible hosts for all of us here. Now, for long as I can remember, Democrats have talked about flipping Texas blue. It's our white whale that some people say. It's impossible, others respond. And here's what I say to that. It always seems impossible until it happens. There is no such thing as a permanent red state or a permanent blue state. In politics, nothing is permanent, not even Ken Paxton, right? Although God knows he seems determined to test the theory, but we're gonna prove him wrong this time. Winning here in the Lone Star State, just like winning anywhere in this country, is not impossible. But nobody is going to hand it to us. It takes hard work. It takes great candidates. It takes a vision for the country. And it takes grit and determination. And if there's one thing I've learned about Texas Democrats, Kendall, you all have enough grit to sand down a pickup truck. So it takes coordination from the county parties to the state party to the national party. And most of all, it takes committed people working day in and day out, whether the pundits think we can win or not. Because guess what? Pundits don't cast votes, ballots, voters do. It can be done. It can be done with amazing candidates like Gina Hinojosa and James Tallarico. With all-star recruits like Bobby Polito and Johnny Garcia and Katie Padilla-Stout. With Democratic candidates surging across our nation. Democrats are going to win back power in 3 short months. And we're going to do something radical with that power. We're going to use it. We're going to use it to improve people's lives. Imagine that. We're not going to do what Republicans have done, sitting on their power and using it to enrich the already wealthy, all while kids go hungry and families lose their health care. We're not going to build golden ballrooms. We're going to make sure Americans can afford the living rooms they already have. And Democrats, we're going to restore the American dream, and that work starts today. Today, we come together to set our path forward for our party and our country. Today, we vote on the proposed early window of our 2028 presidential nominating process. A group of 6 states, states that truly represent our party and our values: South Carolina, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Mexico, Michigan, Virginia, and of course, all of those states that will come after, 6 states to begin our roadmap back to the White House. I want to thank the Rules and Bylaws Committee for their rigorous work on this proposal, led by the great chairs, Jim, Roosevelt, and Mignon Moore. Thank you. Democrats, this is much bigger than a lineup of dates on a calendar. This is about our approach to winning back the presidency. It's about the kind of Democratic Party and the kind of country we aspire to be. And as we think about our future, our past can serve as a guide. Under FDR, our New Deal coalition grew to include big city residents and small town Americans, rural Southerners and Northern labor unions, progressive idealists and working class families, people who had been pushed to the margins, including religious, racial, and ethnic minorities. The Democratic Party, this Democratic Party, welcomed all of them into this big tent party of ours. Together, Democrats pulled the country out of the Great Depression. We got people working again. And we passed the largest anti-poverty program in our nation's history, the Social Security Act, which celebrated its 91st anniversary just yesterday. Democrats, this is our history, and it can be our future. We can move this beautiful nation beyond the grip of a man who is wrecking our economy, corrupting the people's government, and destroying our standing across the world. Republicans can anchor themselves to Trump and defend his price hikes and greenlight his authoritarian overreach. But you know what? If you anchor yourself to a sinking ship, don't act surprised when you end up underwater, right? Democrats, we are going to offer something different. We will be the party of neighbors helping neighbors, the party of hard work paying off, the party of people who believe our children ought to have more opportunity than we did, the party of dreamers who believe, as my first boss, Paul Wellstone, used to say, that we all do better when we all do better. You see, Republicans have broken their trust with the American people. Remember how Trump promised to bring down prices on day one? Day one, he said. Well, we're well past day one. Someone must have misplaced the lower prices button for him, because instead Americans have gotten skyrocketing costs from a reckless trade war and an actual war with Iran. People in this country have every right to feel betrayed. They were given false promises. They were lied to, and Republicans know it. So now, rather than accept accountability, they're waging a ruthless campaign to avoid it. At Trump's command, Republicans have sought to roll back the Voting Rights Act and stripped away protections for black and brown voters throughout this nation. After the Supreme Court ruling in Louisiana versus Calais, Republican legislators have redrawn electoral maps, especially across the South. More than a dozen members of the Congressional Black Caucus are at risk of being drawn out of their seats because of Trump's racial gerrymandering. Let's call this what it is. When you can't win more voters, you try to choose your voters. When you can't defend your record, you try to rig the rules. When democracy becomes inconvenient, you try to make democracy smaller. We will not let them. Democrats will not let them. We have the most powerful tool there is to stop them: winning elections, winning governorships, winning state legislatures, winning Congress, and slamming the brakes on this corrupt power grab. But our challenge isn't just beating Republicans in the next election. It's meeting the moment that we're in right now, because Americans are tired of politics feeling like a game we play every 4 years. They're tired of politics being covered like a horse race. Who's up, who's down, who's raised what, who's tweeted what, who's having a good week. You know who doesn't get the luxury of an off cycle? The family whose rent is due on the 1st. That's real life. Making rent is real life. Finding a good job is real life. Paying for groceries is real life. Sending your kid to a good school is real life. Taking care of your parents is real life. None of that is a game. And Democrats, our challenge is to rise to the occasion and deliver for the people of this country. And I know that we're up to it. We need to restore Americans' trust in a democracy that can still deliver, in a government that can actually make lives better. And to do that, Democrats, we need to show up. We need to give communities a reason to trust us. Over the past year and a half, all across the country, Democrats have been working to build that trust. All of you have been working to build that trust. Not by parachuting in 3 months before our election day, not with a flashy ad campaign or a celebrity endorsement, but with the honest to goodness work of grassroots organizing. Think about that. Consider the example of Mississippi Democrats who in 2025 came to the DNC with the proposal to flip some state legislative seats. I said, let's get it done, because I believe in Democrats. I believe in our Democratic Party. And I believe that there's no such thing as a permanent blue state, no such thing as a permanent red state, and that we cannot sacrifice state and local power just to focus on federal power. We can do both, Democrats. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can build power up and down the ballot throughout this country. And you know what happened as a result of that? They executed their proposal and they broke the Republican supermajority in their state Senate. That's what Mississippi Democrats did. You know, every so often there are moments in politics where you can feel the ground shifting under your feet. And winning in Mississippi last year was one of those moments. It happened in Iowa with Caitlin Dray, and in Florida with Emily Gregory, and in Georgia with Eric Gissler, and in Louisiana with Chastity Martinez, and right here in Texas with Taylor Ramette. Think about that. Red districts, all of those red districts Some of them districts that Trump won in 2024 by double digits, and all of them red to blue flips because of a focused candidate, a relentless economic message, and a belief in grassroots organizing. That is what the Democratic Party is all about. That's what it was founded on. That's where its future lies. And that is why we are investing our hard-earned resources in the work that wins elections. In every corner of our country, from Michigan to Missouri, Arizona to Georgia, Democrats are showing up. We're hiring staff during the off year. We're maintaining permanent capacity. We're opening new field offices. And we're moving away from a broken system of boom and bust cycles. And we're listening to those who feel forgotten by politics, ignored by politics, and frankly, even targeted by politics. We're showing that we can bring people together whose lives may look very different, but whose hopes for our country are remarkably similar. A good job, a safe neighborhood, a healthy family, a fair shot, just a little breathing room at the end of the month, and the belief that tomorrow can be better than today. So Democrats, we don't accomplish that by asking fewer people to participate. We don't strengthen our party through stricter and stricter litmus tests. You do not build a majority by constantly looking for reasons to throw people out of it. We build a winning coalition by widening the circle, expanding the tents, growing our coalition by building a home for Americans of all walks of life, and by dedicating ourselves to the work of democracy as messy and as boisterous and as unruly as it can be. And yes, Democrats, I know that we can be boisterous. I've attended a Rules and Bylaws Committee meeting. I have witnesses about that. But today, our Rules and Bylaws Committee co-chairs will present for your ratification our historic early calendar. As I mentioned, South Carolina, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Mexico, Michigan, and Virginia. 6 states, different regions, different communities, different experiences, but together as one, our roadmap to the White House. This Rules and Bylaws Committee, the largest and most democratic Rules and Bylaws Committee in our party's history, put together this calendar after a rigorous and public process. Our 2028 nominee, whoever they are, will have to earn the support across the full breadth of America, every region, every demographic, every generation, every economic station in life. No shortcuts, no coronation. You want to lead this party? You go earn it. Go and earn it. This early calendar reflects that diversity. More than 4.6 million Black Americans call these 6 states home, a nearly 160% increase from the 2020 early window. More than 4.2 million Latinos call them home, nearly 1.4 million Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders, and nearly 370,000 Native Americans. Yet our commitment to elevating critical voices in the early calendar goes even further. The 6 early states are home to more than 14 million Americans without a college degree, more than 2.8 million young people, more than 1.1 million union workers, and then more than 2.1 million veterans and military family members, and more than 4.4 million Americans with disabilities. That is America, everybody. Our party doesn't run from diversity. We embrace it. We celebrate it. We give millions of Americans a voice in our democracy and a stake in its future. Think about the people who we're trusting to vet our presidential candidates. The nurse coming home from an overnight shift. The parents standing in the grocery aisle doing math in their heads. The veteran beginning a new chapter in life. The union member fighting for a fair day's pay for a hard day's work. The small business owner lying awake thinking about payroll and thinking about tomorrow. And the young voter preparing to cast a ballot for the first time. These voters deserve presidential candidates who will look each of them in the eye, listen to their concerns, answer their questions, and earn their votes. Not candidates who fly over them, not candidates who take them for granted, not candidates whose entire understanding of America comes from a donor retreat or a polling memo. Go meet the people you seek to represent. That's what this process requires. And that is something every Democrat can be proud of. As a result of this calendar, we have a stronger, more representative path to selecting our nominee. It will battle test our nominee. It will require them to earn support from every corner of this coalition. It will make them a better candidate. And it will put them in the strongest possible position, not just to win a primary, but to win back the White House in 2028. So look, if you believe in a Democratic Party that upholds democracy, if you believe in a Democratic Party that uplifts and celebrates our diversity, if you believe in a Democratic Party that can widen the circle of opportunity, if you believe that working people, not just the wealthy and the powerful, deserve a government that fights for them, then I ask you to support this calendar. Now, Democrats, there will always be people telling us what can't be done. They told us Texas couldn't change. They told us coalitions couldn't grow. They told us Social Security was impossible, that civil rights were impossible, that marriage equality was impossible, that electing the first black president was impossible. Now look, impossible has a pretty lousy track record here in America. So let's stop letting other people define the limits of our ambition. Let's prove that democracy can still accomplish big things. Let's build a party big enough for the country we intend to lead. And let's come together today. Let's adopt this calendar. Then let's leave this room to organize our neighbors and win elections. And let's use our victories to make this country worthy of the people who call it home. Thank you so much, Democrats. Let's get to work. Let's get out there and win. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, John. Okay. Let me just say, I'm going to say one other thing, and it's off script. I asked you all to do this in the caucuses. I'm not asking you just to vote for this, vote yes for this. I'm asking you to enthusiastically support this, and then when you leave here, to go back to your states and remind folks that you just made history, and that this party just made history. I believe so passionately that democracy works when you bring more voices to the table, when you invite more people into the conversation, when you build a process that not only reflects America, but reflects the values of this party. I need each of you. You all are asking me, what can I do to help? This is the most important thing you can do to help. Leave this room and go out and be evangelists for what we just did today, which was to make history. I ask you of that. And now it is my great honor to introduce a great friend of mine, a great former DNC chairman. He had some rough days in there too, I think, but he came out and he won. And you know what? I'm so proud of what he's done since. Of course, he served as a great governor in Virginia. And as governor, he showed that when we elect Democrats, good things happen, right? He made record investments in public education and healthcare. He stood as a brick wall, protecting a woman's right to choose against endless attacks on reproductive freedom. He became the first Southern governor to officiate a same-sex marriage. And most importantly, he personally signed the restoration of voting rights for 206,000 Virginians, the product of a 114-year-old Jim Crow law. And this fall, the voters in Virginia are going to enshrine that restoration of voting rights in their Constitution once and for all. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my friend, our former chairman, the great governor of Virginia, Terry McAuliffe.
How are we doing, everybody? Well, good morning, Democrats. Are you fired up? What a great honor for me to be back to the Democratic National Committee, an institution I love so dearly. You know, when I think of my father, Jack, he was my hero. He never made it to a Democratic National Committee meeting, but he was one hell of a Democrat. He was an old Democratic committeeman from Onondaga County, New York, World War II veteran, Okinawa, Saipan, Tinian Islands. He was just a working guy who loved the Democratic Party and instilled in his son at a very young age the values of our party He loved this party, and he instilled in me that it was the Democratic Party that is the party that will lift all people up. But he did say when people spend too much time complaining in our party, he had a word for them. He called them lemon suckers. His point was, stop complaining, get up, and actually go do something. Get together, get to work, help somebody, and move things forward. And that's who we are as Democrats. As you know, I've had every job you can have in this great party. I started when I was 6 years old. My father put me at a fundraiser and said, Terry, no one gets in unless you get a check. That cost a lot of people a lot of money for 50 years. I started knocking doors, doing the grassroots, making the phone calls, chaired the 2000 convention, chaired several presidential campaigns, chaired the 97 presidential inauguration, served as finance chair of the Democratic National Committee, and serves as the chair of this great institution. And then finally, the honor of my life, a kid from New York became the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, man. Only in America can this happen. And I've learned a lot about Democrats through all those years, going back 60 plus years. We love to argue. I know that. We all have strong opinions, and I like people who have strong opinions. However, I have a message for all of those geniuses and political geniuses out there who constantly go on TV and Twitter, Democrats trashing fellow Democrats. I got a simple message for you. Knock it off or get off the playing field, because we have too much work to do. Folks, I can promise you, nobody sitting in Danville, Virginia right now at their kitchen table worried about paying their heating bill or groceries is worried about what's going on at the DNC headquarters. I promise you all that. We need to be unified because there really is so much at stake. This is the greatest opportunity this year our party has seen in many years. Think about it. We get the gavel in the United States Congress, in the U.S. Senate, and the House. Think about that. Subpoena power, bringing people under oath. I want us to haul in RFK Jr. I want him to know why measles are at an epidemic level today in America. You know, I want to bring Elon Musk back in because I want to know why he brought this 19-year-old kid who went by the nickname Big Balls. I'm not making this up. Gave him the keys to our government. And the good federal workers in Northern Virginia saw their lives destroyed, their jobs eliminated because of this 19-year-old kid. I want to ask Elon Musk those kind of questions. How did he think that was right? And you know what? Let's get Pete Hegseth in. How did we get in this war? How do we end this war? How much does this war cost? How many soldiers actually have been killed? How many soldiers have actually been wounded? And I want to know why all of these sailors are jumping off the USS Abraham Lincoln, right? And you know what? I do want to ask the Trump family, how have they made these billions of dollars when their dad was president of the United States of America? Think about that. Because there is a fundamental difference when they have power and we have power. When they win, the president and his puppets gets richer, our government becomes more corrupt, and our national debt skyrockets. $40 trillion is the national debt. You know what? They run up the debt, Democrats get elected president, and then we eliminate the debts. That's what happens. Because we're smarter at this than the Republicans are when it goes to running this economy. When we win, we hold our government accountable. We create economic opportunity. We lift up all lives. And when we win the Senate, folks, think of this. Donald Trump will not appoint one more member to the United States Supreme Court. No Eileen Cannon, no My Pillow guy. And nobody from the green room of Fox News will ever again be on the United States Supreme Court when the Democrats get control of the United States Senate. And I'm not just talking federally, folks. I am so jacked up about this year. I'm talking about governors. I'm talking about state legislature. I'm talking about election boards at the state and local level, where you're making decisions about a woman's right to make her own decisions about her own body, or about who can vote, or if you can organize or not organize. That's all done at the state level. And our opportunity for millions of Americans has never been better. Because Americans today, they go to the gas pump, they go to the grocery store, they pay their utility bill. Mortgages are up, people can't rent. That's what folks are facing in Trump today. Families are getting hammered by higher costs and soaring debt. So we're serious about this. And that's why this opportunity is so big for us to come together, get moving. And let me say another thing. I'm a little tired of all of this stuff you hear every day about all of these labels. DFL or DSA, moderate, progressive, whatever, liberal. You know, when I was governor of the Commonwealth, guess what? I created more jobs than any governor in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Does that make me a centrist? But I also gave more people health care than any other time in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Does that make me a socialist? No, it makes me a damn good governor and a proud Democrat. Thank you. Because the Democratic label, folks, it means everything. It means standing with working people and putting Americans back on great paying jobs. It means standing for American manufacturing and supporting our union workers. I love our unions. It means expanding health care and those folks with pre-existing conditions, lowering prescription drug costs, investing in public schools, letting women make their own decisions. So, folks, from today going forward, I want to hear any more DFL, DSA, moderate, blah, blah. I want to hear the word Democrat. That's who you are, and that's what you are fighting for. And, you know, a lot of hand-wringing out there. You know, I'm not a big hand-wringer. I just want to tell you, Mr. Chairman, you and the party should be very proud. Think of where we are. Since November 2024, when Donald Trump got elected, think of what's happened across America. We have had 30 state legislative seats switch from red to blue. How many state seats in America since November 24 switched from blue to red? 0! We are 30 to 0, folks. Tell me this message is not working. Are you kidding me? And last year, Virginia, we swept the statewide. We picked up 13 seats in our state House of Delegates. Look at New Jersey. We won the governor. Now we have the largest Democratic Assembly majority in 52 years. What is success? Oh, but how about Florida? In the state house, Mar-a-Lago is now represented by a Democrat. How about Oklahoma? In the last special election, we outperformed the presidential election by 50 points. Folks, this is Oklahoma. Let's hear it for Oklahoma. Oklahoma has a win. But folks, I wasn't much of a singer. Red states, blue states, Trump districts, folks, they're all changing. So no more funeral music. We are fired up to get going as we head to these elections, because listen to me. I know politics. I've done this forever. We have a president today that is in the low 30s. We have the potential this year of having the greatest elections in the history of the Democratic Party. That literally is what's facing all of us here and the opportunities for us going forward. I will predict to you today, we're going to win the governorships in Ohio. We're going to win Iowa. We are going to win Georgia. We are going to win Nevada and a bunch more. How do you like that? Picking up, getting Ohio back in our category. We have the opportunity of flipping 6 states, making them trifecta Democratic states. Huge opportunity. And you listen to this number very closely, folks. 650. That's how many state legislative seats are now in play this year for the Democratic Party. 650. That will be the most in the history of the Democratic Party of the United States of America. And it's right there for us. I'm getting fired up just thinking about all this stuff. But folks, from the courthouse to the State House, the United States Capitol, and I'm just so jacked up. The day after the election, Donald Trump wakes up and he turns on Fox and Friends. And he will understand one thing. The MAGA fever has broken and America is finally starting to heal. And the end of Trumpism happens on November 2028. We are going to ship him back with his Democratic legislature back to Mar-a-Lago. And speaking of 28, I want to specifically thank our chairman, Ken Martin, our co-chairs of Rules and Bylaws, Mignon and James, for the outstanding work. I love this new calendar. When I was chairman in 2004, we changed the calendar. This is one of the best calendars I have ever seen. It is going to put our nominee through the crucible of being able to talk to rural, suburban, urban, military. And I give them a great round of applause for the work they did on that. So as I close, and I think of Jim Roosevelt, I think about his grandfather who is, where is Jim sitting here? Where's Jim? Jimmy, love you, buddy. I mean, you were sitting there 25 years ago when I did this. God bless you. God bless you. But I did love your grandfather. I love Franklin Delano Roosevelt and what he meant to this country. He had a quote that I always use. People always ask me about the Democratic Party. He had a quote. The Democratic Party is essential unity below the surface of apparent diversity. That's us. We're different states, we're different backgrounds, we're different wings of this party. We believe that working people should have a fair shot. We believe that freedom, of course, is worth defending. We believe democracy is worth protecting, and we believe this great country is worth serving. My dad never made it to the DNC, but Jack McAuliffe knew what it was to be a proud, proud Democrat. Show up, do the work, help people, never give up. So folks, we're done with the hand wringing. We are fired up. We have 80 days to go before this election. Let's get everybody positive on that playing field. God bless you. God bless the Democratic Party. God bless the men and women in uniform, and God bless the United States of America. Let's bring this baby home.
At this point, I would now like to introduce a true champion for New Mexicans. Please join me in welcoming Congresswoman Ledger Fernandez from the great state of New Mexico.
Woo! Yes, we are indeed fired up. We are indeed. Tanjo. Yete bene, karatse, Hey, y'all. Buenos dias. Yes, those are the kinds of words and greetings that our next presidential candidates will hear as they travel, fly, drive across our beautiful, diverse, enchanted New Mexico after you vote today. So, buenos dias, y'all. The American story is one of covering struggle, of overcoming struggle, of confronting the big challenges of our country to deliver the promise of a more perfect union. And after the darkest moments, we relied on visionary leaders who could bring the country together. Leaders who could help Americans see themselves as the heroes in a journey where we build the next chapter of that American story together. That story where Americans demand a better future, a good life with good jobs, affordable housing and health care can be told in New Mexico, because New Mexico looks a lot like the America Democrats need to win. The voters Democrats have struggled to convince nationally. Latino men, rural and working class voters aren't abstractions to us. They are neighbors. They are familias and friends. Son nosotros. 49% of New Mexicans are Latino. Another 12% are Native American. There is, yeah, give it up. Because there is no majority racial or ethnic group in New Mexico. New Mexico celebrates this cultural diversity, saluting our state flag as the perfect symbol of friendship among diverse cultures. Presidential candidates will see, hear, taste, and experience las voces, las creencias, la comida, and the concerns that make our Latino communities uniquely who we are. Latinos across the battleground and other states will see that they are not ignored. With over 4.2 million Latinos in the early voting states, Latinos will not be talked about. Our stories will shape the policies of the next president of the United States, who will be a Democrat. Nuevo Mexicanos will ask the tough questions that will resonate with all families. How are we going to afford a home? What will we do to afford childcare, healthcare, and utilities? What happens to my community as the planet heats up and our forests burn? What kind of future will our children inherit? How can we stop the hate and come together as one? Trump's tariffs, Trump's war, and the Trump-Publican attack on rural health care have devastated our rural communities. Farm bankruptcies have skyrocketed 46%, and rural hospitals are closing in every state. I have the largest rural district held by a Democrat. 14% of the folks who voted for me voted for Trump. These rural voters are ready to vote for more Democrats if we show up, we listen, and provide a vision. We will make it easy for our presidential candidates to meet directly with rural voters because we're everywhere. Just drive 10 miles north of Santa Fe into our beautiful mountains, or 15 miles south of Albuquerque, and you'll be in villages, on farms, and with ranchers, Democrats in cowboy hats. Or Republicans and Carhartt, who will remember in November that our candidates were there in dusty boots on those farms, listening, learning, and inspiring. And when you learn to listen to rural voters in New Mexico, you will know how to speak to them across America. Our candidates should be tested on one of the defining issues facing this country, the border and immigration policy. New Mexico is a border state. We understand the importance of protecting our border from drugs and cartels who flood our streets with overdose and death. But we also understand the importance of protecting immigrant neighbors and hard-working families who are terrorized by ICE right now. Democrats should have to come, our Democratic candidates will come to a border state to listen and earn the trust of a border state electorate. In Congress, I'm the chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus, where we'll have 97 Democratic women in the House next week. But on November 3rd, women will flip 16 districts to get Democrats and Hakeem Jeffrey the gavel in the House. And women have outvoted men in every presidential election since 1964, with the gender gap only growing. New Mexico is one of only 3 states with a majority woman legislature. And this November, we will elect the first Native American governor, Deb Haaland. And when our presidential candidates tour a state, they will be asked if the federal government is ready to step up and do its part to support women's issues. New Mexico has protected access to abortion. We are providing women from Texas and across the South life-saving reproductive health care. And we are the first state in the country to enact universal child care. We have free college, free school breakfasts and lunches. We have the hemisphere's largest wind farm, huge solar farms. And at the same time, we are America's second largest oil producing state, but aren't afraid to enact strong methane regulations. These are tangible Democratic achievements. They gave our presidential candidates and voters a place to see what values, there we go, I'm back on. Because in New Mexico, we're going to show a state where we can have democratic, values-led governance. What does it look like? It looks like New Mexico, where we are taking care of our families, our children, our planet, our immigrants, our workers, our people who are our families. That's what we'll get it done. We'll get it done in New Mexico, and we'll get it done across the country in November and in 2028. Because being against Donald Trump isn't enough to win in 2028. But we know that, and Democrats have a transformative, affirmative Democratic action plan that will stand on its own. I am so thankful to our amazing Governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, our Democratic committee members who are here, because they helped convince the Rules Committee. And thank you, Ken, and thank you to this amazing Rules Committee, because you are right. You were right. We are going to have the best 2028 presidential campaign ever. We are going to show what it's like to show up for rural voters, for working voters, for families, for urban voters, for Native American voters, for the voters that are America, because we, Democrats, are America. And I am asking the DNC today to give our presidential calendars the gift of a beautiful, enchanted Nuevo Mexico as the 4th primary state. A state where our Democratic Party will listen to and reconnect with all of the voters that are Democrats. And you, every single one of you, I look around, and when I see those people who show up at the DNC, who show up at our county parties, who show up and volunteer, you are the democracy heroes of our country, and I give you my gratitude, I give you my thanks. And if elections are about sharing the American people a story, the story of the American people, where we can see ourselves, where the American people see themselves, then come to New Mexico, because it will be the place where stories are told about what happened in 2028. In 2028, we took back our democracy. So, que vivan los demócratas, que vivan nuestros Estados Unidos y que bendiga a todos ustedes and all of our beautiful United States of America. I'm Teresa Leger Fernández. Muchísimas gracias.
Next, we will hear from Nevada's Secretary of State, a great friend, Cisco Aguilar, who fights day in, day out for Nevadans. He also serves as the president of the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State. Please welcome Secretary Aguilar from the great state of Nevada to the stage.
Go Nevada! Hello, Democrats! How are you? It's truly an honor to be here today. Thank you for having me. I'm Cisco Aguilar, Nevada's Secretary of State and the chair of the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State. When I thought about what I wanted to say about Nevada, I kept remembering what makes Nevada unique. Our world-class entertainment and hospitality because of Culinary 226, the contributions of immigrants from all over the world. Immigrants built Las Vegas. Immigrants keep Las Vegas running. Yes. One thought kept coming to mind, though. If you want to understand the American story, Nevada is the place you must look. It's a place where the spirit of innovation, the soul of resilience, and the unwielding struggle to make it against all the odds come together. It's the thread that ties us together for the fabric of our nation. But for us Democrats, it's the state that will decide the next president of the United States. America is our country. It's not just their country. And Nevada is the road to the White House. And I'm not saying that because of history, although that's a pretty good reason. We were admitted to the Union in the middle of the Civil War. And yes, even then, our military members voted in the election from the battlefield. We are a battle-born state and led the passage of the 13th Amendment. Since 1912, we voted with the presidential winner in all but 2 elections. But that's not what we've done that makes us the nation's bellwether. It's who we are. Nevada is not a state you win. It is the trust you earn. And if you can earn the trust of Nevadans, you will earn the trust of America. Every candidate in Nevada must ask themselves 3 questions. 1, does my message speak to the cattle rancher as much as it does to the cocktail server? 2, can I campaign at the Latino swap meet Broadacres on Saturday night and be up early for church on Sunday morning? And 3, does the vision I'm putting forth capture the dignity of laborers, the protection of our natural resources, and encompass the American dream of one job for every American without compromising one over the other? Yes. This is just not a recipe for success in Nevada or even the country. It is how we are going to stand together and capture the patriotic soul of our country and our party. Let's take a step back. Nevada is not the only state that is a microcosm of this country, but what sets us apart is our elections. And as Secretary of State, I can tell you Nevada runs some of the most safest, secure, and accessible elections in the country. And accessibility does not have to come at the cost of safety and security. We can have all 3. However, it is a system that gives a seat at the table for those voices who will write the next chapter of our American democracy. With same-day and automatic voter registration, universal mail ballot, we are building turnout across the board. Our mail ballot grace period ensures we do not leave out our service members who are out there protecting our democracy every day. And for our tribal communities, rural voters, and people who work in our 24/7 cash economy or multiple jobs to make ends meet, universal mail ballots give them a voice when it's tough to get to the polls. Nevada should be celebrated for having accessible elections. And when the federal government attacks states like ours, we need to uplift those states that make accessibility a priority. The battle for the access to the ballot box, including mail ballots, is not one where I'll lay down my sword and surrender. I just saw the Odyssey. Throughout our nation's history, the Democratic Party stood for the right to vote. Every community which comes together under the Big Tent Party has had their own trials and tribulations to get here. But it's that struggle that unites us, not divides us. Let us not penalize those who fight for access every day. The struggle is far from over. As I stand here as Nevada's first Latino Secretary of State, in a time where this administration is relentlessly assaulting my community's freedom to access the ballot box, I know that it is a force we will overcome, but we must face it head on. When the people in power assault voting rights and accessibility, it's not the time to retreat. It's the time to double down. And I'll say it again, we must stand tall and show force and strength because it is who we are as a party, and it is a disgrace to the memory of those who gave their lives for this fight. We shall not treat a diverse electorate or use it as a political tool to show favor to a single individual in power without regard to the rest of the country. We must think long-term because it's about winning. Who wants to win? Do we want to be right or do we want to win? I want to win. My path to elected office is not the most typical. I did not choose to run out of desire, but out of necessity. As I walked the halls of a high school I built in North Las Vegas, and North Las Vegas is about to have one of the best mayors in the country, Danielle Monroe Moreno. I walked the halls on Election Day 2020. I asked the students if their parents had voted, and they kept telling me no, and it broke my heart. I heard their answers not because their parents did not want to vote, but because it sounded like they felt the people in power did not want them voting. The future of this country does not belong to those who make every effort and ensure the only ones who will write it have the power. We have a president who wants to choose his voters rather than voters choosing the elected. Elections belong to those who stand against these forces every day. We belong and we must continue the fight. Because the right to vote is not something you alter or withhold, it is a right granted to citizens in this nation. It is a promise that was fought with blood, sweat, and tears of women activists, Latino entrepreneurs, Native American students, Asian American leaders, and Black civil rights marchers. As chair of the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State, it is a promise that Democratic secretaries around this nation are on the front lines of defending every single day. We take the heat, we take the harassment, we take the intimidation, but we are tough as nails. Here in this room, standing with me, is my cousin, Secretary of State Adrian Fontes from Arizona. Adrian is a former Marine. He knows how to stand tall. He knows how to say what needs to be said, but do the right thing for all voters. Together, we've been sued by Trump more time than his former business partners he screwed over has sued him. Some people may think it gets exhausting, but the truth is, I get up early and go to bed late every day to fight these fuckers. And as former chair, as former chair of the Nevada Boxing Commission, I haven't heard the final bell ring. Please, because protecting voting privacy is worth it, defending our mail ballots for Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike is worth it. And ensuring every single eligible voter can cast a ballot is worth it. And ensuring it's free from fear and intimidation is worth it. We must uphold these principles with every ounce of fight in us. Secretaries are about 2026. We are defending the rule of law, and we are winning. We are, as of yesterday, 22-0 on defending lawsuits protecting voters' private data. We continue to win from district courts to the Supreme Court to defend our mail ballots. Let me speak in the terms of the individual who is squatting in the White House at the moment. It is about winners and losers, while secretaries are winners. Let me say it again. We are 22-0. This administration is the loser. And we will win again and against attempts to intimidate black and brown voters with bogus claims of non-citizen voters and fear-mongering of ICE at polling locations. Together, we are stronger than ICE. We will melt them in a second with the law behind us. I know people are concerned about November, but when you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And secretaries have been ready for a long time. We are comfortable being uncomfortable. But we can't win this fight alone. Everyone in this room has a part to play, especially getting out the vote, casting your own ballot. But this election is where all are required to give what they can because our community demands it. We must be servant leaders. Your friends and family need to know the importance of this election. Vote for those who can't. Help voters make a plan. Someone in your life may not have a ride to the polls, so give them a ride. And as the federal government continues to stroke fear and division, our poll workers are more important than ever. A familiar face like yours volunteering during early vote or election day can make the difference. Someone that is scared to walk into the booth will be comforted by your presence. Poll workers are our unsung heroes of our democracy. Let's give it up for our poll workers. To everyone in this room, I've got your back. Your Democratic secretary has your back. Steve Simon in Minnesota, Jocelyn Benson in Michigan. We have a great candidate in Georgia. We are going to turn Georgia blue for secretaries, and the Democrats will control every single battleground state for 2028. 2026 is about 28 for secretaries because the secretary you elect in 2026 will be the secretary responsible for the 2028 presidential. Those secretaries will ensure the law is followed and the rules are fairly applied. Thank you for all you do. Si se puede. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Aguilar. We have a few more states to hear from on our 6 battleground, our early states. The next one is from the great state of New Hampshire. My wonderful friend, the former Senate leader, DNC member from New Hampshire, Donna Soucy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Donna Soucy, the Democratic National Committee woman from New Hampshire. Let me say this, there's no place that truly does democracy better than New Hampshire. We show up for town meetings, we elect a 424-member volunteer legislature, and most importantly, we vote in record numbers. We're a state that welcomes all types of candidates and partners with coalitions and interests across the board. New Hampshire has always had a strong connection with our friends in organized labor and a willingness to fight for working families. In fact, in 1828, we were home to the first strike by women workers in the Cocheco Mills in Dover, New Hampshire. And year after year and decade after decade, New Hampshire has soundly defeated right to work. And we will continue to do so in a bipartisan manner. New Hampshire was also the first state to enact marriage equality without court intervention. And in November, we will elect the first openly gay man to the United States Senate. The Granite State was the first state in 1999 with a female leadership trifecta in state government, with a woman governor, Senate president, and Speaker of the House. And in 2008, the New Hampshire presidential primary was the first time that a woman won a presidential nominating contest. We were the first state to have women as a majority in a legislative chamber, and in 2012, we were the first state to ever send an all-women congressional delegation to Washington. New Hampshire has never claimed to be a perfect reflection of this country. No state is. New Hampshire has proven, however, time and time again that we are suited, well-suited, to run a rigorous, efficient, and fair election like no other state. New Hampshire is a truly purple state where candidates need to engage independent voters who will determine our general elections through face-to-face conversations that no ad buy can replicate. Our voters evaluate candidates in a way that produces impressive results. New Hampshire is a state where history is made because we give everyone a fair shot to run for office, and we have an open and accessible process for voters to fully participate in local and even presidential elections. This year, we have competitive races up and down the ballot in November, and Democrats' path to win a majority in Congress runs right through New Hampshire with our frontline Senate race and our must-hold-on-to congressional seat. And in 2028, New Hampshire Democrats will once again continue to welcome all types of candidates and demonstrate what makes us so unique, our ability to execute a process that's fair to all candidates, rigorous in its demands, and efficient in its execution. New Hampshire will help to lead the way for all Democrats across the country. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Donna. Next up from the great state of Michigan, former state senator, former congressional candidate, current chairman, and great friend, Curtis Hertel.
DNC delegates, how are you? I am proud to be from the unified state of Michigan. You know, the national pundits all came into Michigan last week and said that Michigan was going to be divided after our primary. We all stood together. And what I can tell you is that what we know, yeah, we had a long primary season, but what's important is the long 2 years that the people of Michigan have had under Donald Trump's administration. 2 years where they were promised that their prices would go down, that their wages would go up, that health care would be more affordable, that there would be no foreign wars, that the Epstein files would be released, and every single part of that is bullshit. And the people of Michigan know it. We are so proud to be the fifth state in this process. I can tell you that 5 is perfect for Michigan, by the way, because Michigan is America's high five. But we are also proud because this is what we can tell you about Michigan. Michigan looks like America. We are the most diverse battleground state in the country, not just racially diverse, but economically as well. We have the most manufacturing jobs. We put the world on wheels, and then also we feed the world through our farms. Michigan is America. And if you can win in Michigan, you can win anywhere in America. I will also say why this is so important is that any kind of Democrat can win in Michigan. Michigan is a state where Joe Biden has won, that Bernie Sanders has won, and I'm proud to say that the late, great Jesse Jackson won. Anyone can win Michigan. So we are honored to be this early battleground state in this early window. We want to thank the committee members for putting us there. We hope that we will get to a vote, and most importantly, we will unify afterwards. I can tell you that I know it's hard sometimes. I know it. I just went through a rough primary in Michigan. But I can tell you that we were able to do it together. And so I will hopefully everyone, no matter what side of the votes you're on tonight, will walk out of this room united and say we have a great plan, and we are going to use this plan to take this country back, because if Democrats win, the people win. Thank you all. Let's go win.
Last speaker, of course, really needs no introduction. but he deserves one because he was a fantastic, fantastic chair of our party, great friend of mine, a wonderful chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party, a fantastic Senate candidate. More importantly, someone who has always loved this party, continues to serve it. Our great friend, please welcome Jamie Harrison.
Thank you, folks. As I often say, you know, if a black man could blush, you all will definitely make it happen. Thank you all so much, DNC. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to all my friends and colleagues up here. And I know folks have, I had this long speech, and I'm going to cut it down a bit because I know you got to get to the airport. But to my beloved DNC family, you know, there are moments when a decision is about more than the decision itself. This is one of those moments. On paper, we're talking about a presidential primary calendar. Dates, states, order, delegates. But I don't believe that's what this really is all about today. This is about who gets heard. This is about who gets seen and who gets a seat at a table when we begin the process of choosing the next president of the United States. And as we turn the page to this new chapter, I also want us to honor the chapters that came before it. For generations, Iowa and New Hampshire led the pack. They set the pace. From living rooms to coffee shops to diners and town halls to snowy campaign stops and packed school gymnasiums. The people of Iowa and New Hampshire, they opened their communities and their homes to candidates. And they gave our nation some unforgettable moments that shaped presidential campaigns, candidacies, and ultimately the presidency. So to the Democrats in Iowa and New Hampshire, thank you. Thank you. And today we're going to welcome new voices and new communities into that early conversation. Nevada, New Mexico, Michigan, Virginia, alongside South Carolina and New Hampshire, these states will create traditions of their own. There will be new gathering places, new campaign moments we cannot yet even imagine, and new communities that will get to look a person who wants to be president of the United States in the eye and say, here is who we are. Here is what matters to us. Now tell us how you intend to lead us. That is the beauty of what we are doing here. We are not erasing tradition. We're building upon it. We're taking a table that has played an extraordinary role in American politics, and we're just pulling up a few more chairs. And for me, the significance of pulling up those chairs, that's not theoretical, it's personal. I was raised in Orangeburg, South Carolina by my grandparents. I grew up listening to them and their friends tell stories about what it meant to be black in the South. My grandmother once told me a story about being a little girl and watching the KKK march through her neighborhood. Imagine being that little black girl. Imagine the fear, seeing the robes, the hoods, and feeling the hate. That march had a purpose. It was intended to send a message to her and her family and her community. Be afraid. Know your place. You have no power here. Then decades later, when I was about 10 years old, I watched the same KKK march through my hometown of Orangeburg. Different generations, same hate, same message. That is why I know this history, or history itself, isn't ancient. My grandmother lived it. I lived part of it. And generations before us endured even worse, because you cannot tell the story of America without telling the story of South Carolina. And you certainly can't tell the story of Black America without talking about South Carolina. 40% of enslaved Africans came through the Port of Charleston. National Geographic says that 90% of Black Americans can trace at least one ancestor to the Palmetto State. And those folks, their hands cultivated rice, their hands picked cotton. Their forced labor helped build South Carolina and helped build America. And then freedom came. And the people of America had enslaved, the people that America had enslaved did something extraordinary. They embraced the democracy that had rejected them. During Reconstruction, South Carolina witnessed an extraordinary flowering of Black political power. Black citizens became voters, legislators, and leaders. Black South Carolinians served as lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, and speaker of the House. It was the majority Black South Carolina legislature that introduced to America the idea of free public education. South Carolina said during Reconstruction, 4 out of the 5 members of Congress were Black men. Think about that. People who had once been considered property were now exercising political power. And then that power was deliberately taken away. Violence, intimidation, disenfranchisement, Jim Crow. Within a generation, much of that extraordinary Black political power was systematically dismantled. During Reconstruction, we had 8 Black members of Congress. It took us 95 years to get to number 9, and that was Jim Clyburn. That history matters because history doesn't just tell us where we have been, it warns us about where we can go again. And it's that history that gives this moment such significance. And I want to give praise where praise is due. 4 years ago, President Joe Biden challenged our party to look at our presidential nominating calendar in a different way, to ask who gets a seat at the next table. And he reminded us that Black voters long have been the backbone of the Democratic Party, but he wanted us to create a process that reflected the diversity of America. And he deserves credit for that. He planted a seed, my friends, but you all have nurtured that seed. And today we see it taking root. You know, I often talk about hope. Because for Black folks, and many folks, not just Black folks, but I can speak from my Black experience, but for Black folks, sometimes hope was all that we had. Hope that tomorrow could be better. Hope that their children could live lives that they could only imagine. Hope that one day that they would be treated not as second-class citizens, but simply as citizens. Equal, free, American. And even that hope, the forces of hatred tried to extinguish. But they couldn't kill the hope, my friends. And eventually that hope found an instrument in the ballot box. One of the last things I ever did with my grandfather before he died in 2004 was to vote. That was our little tradition. We would go to the polls and vote. He was diabetic and an amputee, and so I had to roll him into the precinct. When we got back home, we sat out on the porch, and he looked at me and he said, "Baldy." That was his nickname for me. Y'all can't use it now. He said, "Baldy, you know what we did today?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "We voted." He said, "You know, in this state, I couldn't always do that." I said, "Yes, sir, I know that." He said, "In this state, I wasn't always considered a whole man." I said, "Yes, sir, I know that too." He said, "Let me tell you something. Never let anyone tell you that you don't matter." Never let anyone tell you that you don't count. Today, DNC, why this is so personal and emotional to me is because this body, this party, a party that in which in the past I and many of us could not even be in this room, could not have even been a delegate. But as this country has evolved, this party has evolved as well. Today, this party is saying to a whole lot of people, we see you, we hear you, you matter, and we are going to do everything to fight for you. So what you are doing here today, my friends, is history. And you are saying to a whole new generation that we're going to bet on you. And that the words of our founders that all people are created equal actually mean something. So thank you all. Thank you for pulling together this calendar. Thank the Rules and Bylaws Committee for doing so. In South Carolina, our motto is, while I breathe, I hope. But I always like to modify that a bit. Because in order to really make hope real, the only way that I have ever seen you make hope real, hope in New Hampshire, hope in Iowa, hope in South Carolina, hope in New Mexico, hope in Nevada, hope in Michigan, is through a 4-letter word, and that is vote. So, Democrats, as we leave here today, our motto won't be, while I breathe, I hope, but while I breathe, I vote, because that is how we make hope real for all of America. Thank you so much, Democrats. Thank you, DNC. Thank you for creating this calendar. Mr. Chairman, thank you for your vision and your passion. Folks, let's make sure we make hope real. Let's get out there and let's vote.
We're now going to move on to our business here. At this point, please let me bring up, just one moment here. I'm going to bring up Congresswoman Joyce Beatty to introduce the co-chairs of the Rules and Bylaws Committee.
Mr. Chairman, and to this body, it is an honor to be asked to ask you to join me in welcoming our co-chairs of an essential backbone committee of the DNC, the Rules and Bylaws Committee. And I'd like to do it with this brief statement that seems fitting. 66 years ago at a DNC meeting, John F. Kennedy said, "This new frontier of which I speak is not just a set of promises, it is a set of challenges. It sums up not what I intend to offer the American people, but what I intend to ask of them." Please join me in welcoming James Roosevelt of the great state of Massachusetts and Mignon Moore from the District of Columbia as they come and tell us what they ask of us. The Rules and Bylaws Committee, backbone committee of the DNC.
So good afternoon, Democrats. I feel a little inadequate after listening to the chairmans speak today, but they have fired us up, and so when we leave this place, we'll be ready and equipped. My name is Mignon Moore. Thank you, Congresswoman Beatty, for the introduction. On behalf of Jim and myself, I would like to thank every member of the Rules and Bylaws Committee for their commitment to our party and the extraordinary amount of time they have given to this work. As a point of personal privilege, I'd like for all the Rules and Bylaws Committee members to stand, and I ask humbly that the members give them a great round of applause. Thank you so very much. They have challenged me and Jim. They have supported us, but they have been the hardest working people that we have come to know. Over the past 10 months, the DNC Rules and Bylaws Committee gathered for 9 public meetings that spanned over 70 hours. This work resulted in the 2028 delegate selection rules, which are the main rules governing how delegates for the convention are selected, the 2028 call for the convention, which provides for the allocation of delegates and the rules for the convention, and Rule 12A. I know this sounds technical, but it is a very important work that they've accomplished that determines the early calendar adopted by the committee and that we hope you will vote on today. As you know, this is the first time in decades that the Democrats have made changes to the early window nominating calendar with an open field. As a result, we have a duty to carry out this work in an open, fair, and transparent manner. I'll turn to my co-chair, Mr. Jim Roosevelt. You've heard so much about him, but I say publicly every chance I get, I love this man. I have been honored to co-chair this committee with him, and he will go into a little bit more detail about our process.
Let me just say, it is a pleasure and an honor for me to co-chair this committee with Mignon Moore, who has served our party in so many ways, including bringing us great conventions and great campaigns. Over the past year, the DNC Rules and Bylaws Committee delivered on our mandate to a T. This process was open. Every state was invited to apply. We received 12 applications for the early window, and all 12 were given the opportunity to present before the committee. In addition, this process was fair. The committee ensured geographic balance by requiring one state from each of our 4 regions, East, Midwest, South, and West, plus an optional 5th state from any region. In a reflection of the strong applications from so many states and a desire to put forward the very best early window possible, the committee chose to pass an amendment that allowed us to select up to 6 states, and we did that. Finally, this process was transparent. Our meetings were open to the public and live streamed, I could say to the country or to the world, allowing anyone to tune in and hear this important process themselves. And they will remain, our meetings will remain online in case someone wants to spend an afternoon listening to our lively debates on the calendar, delegate selection rules, or the call. Now that you've probably been hearing a lot the last few days about ranked choice voting. Apparently, an intention to clarify our existing rules has caused a bit of a stir and some confusion. So you will hear shortly a motion to separate the question and go back to our original language that has been included in the delegate selection rules for several cycles. As I shared publicly yesterday during the executive committee meeting, I plan to support the motions, because it takes 2 motions, to amend the rules and go back to our original language. And I look forward to the committee's adoption of the full report as amended. Again, I want to thank my fellow Rules and Bylaws Committee members for their hard work to finalize these documents. And that was 70 hours, by the way, 7-0 of public hearings. With that, let me turn it back to our chair, Ken Martin. Thank you.
Before we get back to business, I want to take a moment of personal privilege to thank both Jim and Mignon for their leadership. I think it's really important that you all know the Rules and Bylaws Committee met 9 times over the past 10 months. 9 times over the past 10 months. Over 70 hours. 70 hours deliberating. And as a result, to produce over 70 pages of documents to present to you as part of this comprehensive report. And as Chair Roosevelt and Moore mentioned, transparent, open to the public, open to the states who wanted to participate, open to voices. So members, will you please join me in a huge round of applause for our RBC co-chairs and the whole committee once again. Thank you, Mignon and Jim. At this point, members, the report has now been submitted to you, and I see a delegate at microphone 1. Please state your name and where you're from and the purpose for which you rise.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Frank Leone, District of Columbia, and I rise to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move to divide and separate Rule 14A of the delegate selection rules.
It's been moved and seconded to divide Rule 14A from the delegate selection rules. Second. I'm sorry? Hold on. This motion will, just so I will explain to everyone how this will work, a motion to divide is not debatable. It takes a majority vote to divide the question from the report for consideration. It has been moved and seconded to consider Rule 14A separate from the rest of the report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. No. The ayes clearly have it. At this point, I will go back to the maker of the motion to speak in favor. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have another motion.
Yes, thank you.
Frank Leone from D.C. I move to strike the last 2 sentences of Rule 14A and return to the original language of the rule.
It has been moved and seconded to strike the existing language in Rule 14A and revert back to the original language. This motion is debatable.
Right, and I'd like to speak to the motion. Yeah, thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Frank.
So I'm a member of the Rules and Bylaws Committee, and I propose the language that I'm now moving to strike to clarify the rules and to provide some guidance to state legislatures, because I was concerned from what I had seen that legislatures could adopt ranked choice voting procedures which provided for ranking until you only had one candidate in a winner-take-all system. And our system is a proportional representation system, so we don't have winner-take-all. We have a number of candidates can receive delegates. So I wanted to get some clarification on that. What I did not want to do was have it be a general statement on ranked choice voting and have anything to do with your city or your county or your state or those sorts of elections. The language is limited to our unique delegate selection process, which is something the DNC controls, and which we have consistent rules for 57 states. Now, that being said, each state this spring will submit a delegate selection plan, and the Rules and Bylaws Committee will work with those states and make a determination as to whether the approaches fit with our delegate selection rules and try to make them comply with our delegate selection rules. So that's the process that we've used in the past. In the past, ranked choice voting has come up, thought might benefit from some clarification. In fact, it did not seem to benefit from such clarification. So I'm asking that it be withdrawn, and then we can move on and focus on the celebration of our new calendar, which is the big story of our rules. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
that was one one speech in favor, and per our standing committee rules, there will be 3 speeches in favor, 3 speeches against. I'll go to a speech against at this point. I'd like to alternate, so if the staff could see if there are any speakers in line to speak against this motion. With a red flag. Hold up a red flag. Okay, come on up. Okay, If you could please state your name, where you're from.
Yes, Artie Blanco, Nevada. I just want to say a couple things about this. I'm against this. I've been a member of the RBC representing the battle-born state of Nevada as an early state. What I stand here to say is that you should respect the work that this committee has done in 10 months, 70 hours, and that's just this year. This does not include the same conversations that we have had every 4 years about this same issue. Not one state that has had ranked choice voting has been allowed to use that process for proportional representation. This is not about any other election process in a state. You can elect your city council, your statewide, your congressionals, any way you want. But when it comes to the Democratic Party presidential nominating process, no state law should tell us how to run our process and nominate our candidates. That is why I am against this. We have done this work many times. This is not a new issue. We discuss it every 4 years. And we are coming down a precedent in this, what we are doing today. People that have come to us from the outside of this party, changing our process. And that is why I am against this.
Thank you, Artie. Speech at delegate at microphone 1. Please introduce yourself, where you're from.
Dr. Jessica Cook from the Great Land, Vice Chair, Alaska. I'd like to begin thanking Chair Martin, President Club, and the RBC for their leadership and for setting the party up for success in 2028 with a historic calendar. We're here to do everything we can do to compete in 2028. In line with the chair's call to knock every door, listen to every voter, and build an inclusive big tent. And that's why I'm speaking in favor for the body to amend by striking the language. The proposed addition to Rule 14A would prohibit a ranked ballot in 2028 presidential primaries. And if a state law requires a ranked ballot, the party would simply throw out all but first rankings. This would render a voter's choice meaningless. Removing the new text is important because we need to keep with party precedent to let states decide. We know what works best for our voters and what we need to do to compete. That's why we're fired up about this. Competing means having the freedom to use ranked choice voting in presidential primaries, if it works for our state. We're asking for the freedom to compete with the election system that increases voter engagement, helps with voter turnout, and energizes and broadens our base behind our candidates. In Alaska, we use ranked choice voting, and we've used it for our primary. And it works. And our Democrat voters love it. We look forward to working with the RBC as we submit our state plans. Again, I'm asking you to let states decide. States that use RVC or want to use RVC to compete should have the freedom to do so. That's all we're asking.
Thank you, Delegate at microphone 1. That's 2 speeches in favor, 1 against. I see a speaker at microphone 2. State your name and for what purpose you rise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Melissa Lopez-Franson from the great state of Minnesota, and I rise in solidarity with my colleague, RBC member Frank Leon from the District of Columbia. And as a member of the Rules and Bylaws Committee and as a Latina, I am so proud of the historic and diverse calendar that we have just talked about and are about to vote for. And I believe that we need to leave this meeting united on that message. Adopting this motion will help us to silence all the outside noise on the procedural question that we have been talking about in our committee for 70 hours or more, to overshadow that immense work that we've accomplished together as a committee for this calendar. For that reason, I support the motion of DNC member and Rules and Bylaws Committee member Frank Leon to divide the question and to vote to remove the language and revert back. Thank you.
Thank you, delegates. At this point, we have, unless there are any votes against, we have exhausted our 3 speeches in favor of the amendment. Are there any speeches against? Are there any speeches against? The question has been called. At this point, seeing no other speeches against, we will move to a direct vote at this point on the motion. Let me restate the motion, which is Rule 14A of the rules that has been divided and properly debated. The language, the proposed language would be stricken and replaced with the old language. At this point, we will move to a voice vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes clearly have it. Thank you very much. At this point, delegates, if you could please, we haven't taken the official vote on the report yet. Seeing at this point, we're going to move on to a vote on the Rules and Bylaws Committee report as presented and amended. As presented and amended, correct. Is there any additional debates on the report? We will move into speeches in favor or against the report as amended and presented. I do see a delegate at microphone 2. Delegate. Please state your name, where you're from, and for what purpose you rise.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Rita Hart, and I am proud to be the chair of the Iowa Democratic Party. And I know this is going to be really shocking to everybody in this room, but I rise in opposition to the calendar. Iowa is not happy with the calendar, and we will be voting no today. The job of the DNC calendar is to ensure that the strongest possible nominee emerges to become the Democratic candidate for President of the United States of America. I appreciate the work that individual RBC members put into this calendar. I truly do. Unfortunately, this calendar fundamentally misses the mark. It's a product of broken promises, and it excludes huge swaths of the country and the voters that Democrats need to win the kind of majorities it takes to restore democratic principles and reject this misguided and corrupt Trump administration. In 2023, I stood before this committee and warned that the 2024 calendar was not feasible, would not stand, and ignored Middle America. Today, I share a similar warning. The 2028 calendar has no representation of states with a majority of Central or Mountain time zones, and no Midwest state is among the first 4. Additionally, the states selected will only be granted waivers if they can change their state laws by September 15. If they cannot, our calendar will once again not be feasible and will be thrown into chaos. I'm deeply concerned that our party has not learned from past mistakes. We need a Midwest and a truly rural state to be among the first 4 states if we hope to build sustainable and lasting democratic majorities that enact real and meaningful change. Iowans understand that we have to change course in order to win. As a result, in Iowa in 2026, we are offering voters something new with the strongest ticket that we have had in a generation of common sense, independent-minded leaders. We have an opportunity to elect a new governor, a new U.S. senator, to send more Democrats to Congress, and to grow our Iowa State House caucuses. Iowa is the center of the political universe right now. Energy, excitement, and enthusiasm exists all across our state. To be very clear, this calendar discussion is an unwelcome distraction from the important work that we have to do to flip the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate. Iowa is on the path to win in November because our Iowa Democrats will always do what's best for Iowa. We intend to work with this new generation of leaders to ensure that Iowans' voices are heard in 2028. Do not forget that no matter what our calendar is like, the Republicans will hold their First in the Nation caucus in Iowa in 2028. They will spend hundreds of millions of dollars to promote their candidates, and they will bring tons of national media attention along. Excluding Iowa from the early calendar at a time when we'll have at least 3 Democratic members of Congress and an opportunity to flip Chuck Grassley's Senate seat in 2028 gives the other side a giant media bullhorn that we abdicate with this calendar. Folks both in and outside of Iowa have encouraged members of the RBC to revisit this calendar after the 2026 midterm elections. Today, Iowa will vote no to give this Democratic Party that we love and believe in a fighting chance for 2028. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairwoman Hart. Speech in favor, delegate at microphone 1. Please state your name and the purpose for which you rise.
Thank you, Chair Martin. This is Sam Petzonk. I'm a member from West Virginia, and I rise in support of the calendar. I come from a state in the heart of Appalachia, a state that has felt excluded in the politics of this country for a long time, or at least forgotten. And one thing I want to lift up that is so powerful and really commendable about this calendar is it invites the presidential candidates to come to the heart of Central Appalachia, to Southwestern Virginia, to Bluefield, to Norton, to Buchanan and Tazewell and Dickinson and Russell and Lee counties, the heart of the coal fields. And when they do that, they're going to speak not only to those voters, but to voters in West Virginia, Eastern Kentucky, Western Pennsylvania, Southeastern Ohio, Western Maryland, voters. Those are Zach Space voters, Frank Murtha, Nick Rahal voters, Rick Boucher voters. These are voters that we have represented as Democrats very well, and I just think it's so commendable, and it should be lifted up that that's something this map is doing, and I hope it will pay dividends regionally for our party, and I support it in large part for that reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate at microphone 2, please state your name and where you're from and for what purpose you rise.
Crystal Spain, Chair for South Carolina. I rise in support of this calendar. This calendar is bold, it is fearless. It shows that Democrats are unafraid. It shows that Democrats know that the road to the White House is through the Deep South. It is through Black and brown communities, the people who are under attack. And it's showing that we are going to center those folks and uplift those communities and uplift those issues. And so for all the reasons that have been stated, New Mexico, Michigan, and South Carolina going first gives us the runway to put more states in this window. And we are proud of this work, and I rise to support it. And I hope that you all will vote in favor of this calendar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, delegates. The delegate at microphone 1, please state your name and where you're from and for what purpose you rise.
Maria Cardona from Washington, D.C., Mr. Chairman, and I rise in support of this historic calendar that will provide for us the most battle-tested, strongest nominee that will allow us to take back the White House in 2028. For the first time that I have been in this party, we are representing not just our Democratic coalition, but this country. In the strength of its diversity, this calendar represents every single part, status, coalition, voter, community that we need in order to win the White House. As a Latina, I could not be prouder because for the first time also, we are putting our money where our mouths are. For the first time, I feel seen, I feel represented. We're gonna have not just 2 states that represent the Latino community, but every single state in this calendar represents not just the Latino community, but it represents the Black community, labor, rural, urban, everything and everywhere we need, every single voter, every single coalition, every single community that we need to speak to, that our nominee needs to understand how to speak to, and the nominee that comes out, the winner of our presidential process in 2028, there will be no more best battle-tested, strong candidate that is going to come out and is going to be able to go back and take the White House in 2028. And the thing that I love most about this calendar is that there could not be more of an FU and a middle finger to the Republican Party and to the Trump administration in its corruptness and how they have completely disrespected and disregarded the voters that we know to be so core to our country and to the Democratic Party. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. We have exhausted speeches in favor at this point, 3 speeches in favor. We only have 1 speech against. So if there's anyone that would like to speak against this report, I'll ask again. If there's anyone who would like to speak against this report, if there's anyone who would like to speak against this report, the question has been called. See no other speeches for or against. We've exhausted debate. We will move to a vote on the report itself. Again, this is the full report, the waivers, the rules, all of that is in front of you right now. We will be voting for. All those in favor of this report as presented and amended signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, the motion passes. Congratulations. Congratulations, DNC. History. History. Thank you so much. I am so incredibly proud of the work of this Rules and Bylaws Committee and, of course, the work of this DNC for making history today, a day that all of you should remember proudly, all of you were a part of. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We still have some business to go here, so please bear with us today. At this point, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Vicki Gordon. Vicki is running to be the next Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Texas. In the Texas State Legislature, Representative Goodwin has fought for all Texans. Please join me in welcoming our friend, the next Lieutenant Governor, Vicki Goodwin.
Well, hello, Democrats. So fabulous to be with you here today. There is some change in the air. I can feel it. And some hope. Hey, who here would like to see history made? I am running to be the first woman lieutenant governor in the state of Texas. These are some very exciting times. There was some polling done recently by Texas A&M, you know, the bastion of liberals. And it showed me, Vicki Goodwin, 2 points ahead of Dan Patrick. That hadn't happened in a while, y'all. You know this is Texas. This is a pretty red state. I'm in my 4th term in the Texas legislature, and let me tell you, it is tough being a Democrat in the Texas legislature. And that is why I am running to be lieutenant governor. Here in the state of Texas, the lieutenant governor is incredibly powerful. You might say, well, how are you going to win in a state where Democrats haven't won a statewide election in 30 years? Well, let me tell you, First of all, look at their slate. Starting with Ken Paxton, crook, who was impeached in the Texas House with the help of Republicans, and then my opponent, Dan Patrick, helped get him acquitted after receiving $3 million from said criminal. Then he was acquitted by Dan Patrick. Oh, we have Greg Abbott, we have Middleton, we have Huffines, the owner of the Epstein Ranch, Nate Sheets, Beau French, and Dan Patrick. I tell you what, they are helping us this cycle. They aren't talking about the things that Texans care about. They aren't talking about the fact that in this state that has the 8th largest economy in the world, there are 5 million Texans who are uninsured, who don't have health insurance. But I have a plan for that. They don't talk about the fact that they are sending billions of dollars out the door to private schools when our state constitution says that we have to provide a fully funded public education, and we are not to send public dollars to religious institutions. They aren't talking about those things. They aren't talking about the destruction of our beautiful national park, Big Bend. Instead, they're trying to divert attention, but they aren't fooling anyone. So what's it gonna take? It takes building coalition. It takes, a little bit of money. Well, y'all may have heard of James Tallarico leading the ticket here in Texas. You may have heard of Representative Gina Hinojosa running for governor. Now you have had a chance to meet Vicki Goodwin running for lieutenant governor. And let me tell you, we need a good win for Texas. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Vicki. And it is my great honor right now to introduce a fantastic mayor. But let me just say that one of the things we have been focused on at the DNC, and you heard me say this earlier, is not just focusing on federal power. Long gone are the days when this DNC focused just on federal power at the expense of state and local power. We have been working hand in glove with the Democratic Mayors Association, the Democratic municipal officials, the National Democratic County officials to make sure that we are working to support their efforts to elect Democrats at all levels of government. It's not by accident that we've been winning, because we have great leaders leading these organizations who are fighting tooth and nail to get more Democrats elected to local government. And one of them is joining me today, my great friend, the mayor of Kansas City, the president of the Democratic Mayors Association. Please welcome Mayor Quentin Lucas.
All right, everybody, how y'all doing? Are we doing all right? It has felt like a somewhat long city council meeting, but I will bring you to the end of everything we are working on. My name is Quentin Lucas. I am proud to be the mayor of Kansas City. That means I get to share time with my friends. I'm a proud resident of Missouri. Let's give Missouri a shout out today. I live next door to my friend Gene from Kansas. We'll talk about them right now. And see, look, that's some Chiefs fan excitement right there. I got 3 requests for you for my time up here with you. 3 very quick requests. The first thing is, y'all, keep winning. Keep kicking ass, Democrats. From winning mayoral races in Waukesha, Wisconsin, to Miami, Florida, to picking up seats in Texas, to school boards in Tennessee. We are showing the Democrats can win in every race, and can win at every level, which is how we can win it all in 2026 and in 2028. The next thing that I ask you is this. Remember the most important data point of all. You know, you hear about polls, you hear statistics and all of that. The most important data point is how much money does somebody have in their pocketbook? How much money does somebody have in their bank account? And if you wonder if that's real or not, I'll go to my home state. The billionaires got together and decided that they were going to get rid of our income tax, and they were going to raise everybody's sales taxes, everybody's use taxes, make it more expensive for every man, woman, and child to live and exist in our state. And what happened in that vote? It failed 83% to 17%. 83 to 17. You had Baghdad election numbers against the Republicans. The governor embarrassed the whole regime, Josh Hawley, everybody else. They didn't just lose, they got beat, and they got beat badly. We need to remember that message on everything we do and in every single race. Because in Trump plus 40 counties, when they said, do you want your cost of living to get more expensive? Everybody said not only no, but they said hell no. And then my final request for you today is this: other than loving your mayor and being kind to us, because we do need that from you, is to remember why we do all of this. In our last discussion, we heard about our 70 hours of meetings. God bless you and thank you for that. I know all of you do calls, you knock doors, you do the work, you're asking for money and you're raising money, and these days can get really tough. But remember why we are here. I was reminded earlier this year as we were fighting a gigantic ICE detention concentration camp that they wanted to build in our city. They were threatening lawsuits against us, threatening to throw people in jail. But I remember that our immigrant sisters and brothers are worth the work. Whenever they fight us on safety issues, I remember making sure that I can drop off my child and your children can go to a school that will be safe is worth the work. I want to make sure that as we talk about rural America, as their policies close more hospitals, eliminate care, making it more dangerous to have a child to be a stroke victim in rural America and across America, our seniors, our people, our health care are worth the work. So what I say to you is, our cities are worth the work, our suburbs, our rural towns, our states, our country is worth the work. Democrats, mayors are proud to stand with you everywhere that we exist. We will fight with you. We will make sure that we win. Make sure that we win in Iowa with my friend Rob Sand. We will make sure that we win in Kansas. We will make sure we win everywhere in the country, and more than anything, that we win in 2028. God bless y'all. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Next up is our National Co-Finance Chair, Chris Corge.
I wasn't expecting to get up so quickly, but I hope I moved quickly enough. Folks, I have 3 words to say to you. Win, win, win. That is all that matters, is just winning. Now, we all agree on 90% of everything. I don't care what wing of the party you're at. We all agree on the most basic things that matter to Americans. You know, I've been elected to the DNC 3 times. Some people thought I was crazy the last time I got elected. I've been here 7 years. And it was great to see Jamie get up there and speak. What a great chair he was. And to see my good friend, Terry McAuliffe, get up here. He's always been inspiring for us. And our own chair working 24/7 to make sure that we do exactly the same thing, just win. So my message to you all today is the game is on. It could never be more important. If we don't win, our democracy will fail us all. I love first my country. I love the party just as much as my country. And I am thankful to each and every one of you because you are ambassadors for this party. You are the ones that are going to carry the message back to your communities and make sure that we turn out the vote, that we have the money, that we organize on the ground, and that, yes, we win. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Chris. At this point, I'd like to bring up the co-chair of the Budget Oversight and Review Committee, Chris Lowe. I should say that his co-chair, Doris Kraus-Mays, was not able to make it to this meeting, so we'll have Chris come up and present the report from the Budget Oversight and Review Committee. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. As you mentioned, my co-chair, Doris Kraus-Mays, has been presiding at the Virginia AFL-CIO this week, and so was unable to be here today. So I'm pleased to provide an update on the work of the Budget Oversight and Review Committee to this DNC meeting. At the meeting yesterday morning, we were pleased to welcome a new Chief Financial Officer, a new Chief Operating Officer, and new National Finance Directors to the DNC. The committee looks forward to working with them. This highly talented group have all worked at the DNC either as a member or as a staff member in previous years. So they have a lot of experience of our body. We're pleased to report that through the end of June, the DNC had receipts of approximately $73.2 million and disbursements of $70.3 million. At our meeting, the staff presented a very detailed financial review of revenue and expenses, which broke down the components of both at the highest level of transparency this committee has ever seen. We've invested more money than ever in a midterm cycle when we don't hold the White House. This is because we have raised more money than ever in a midterm cycle when we don't own the White House. And we've spent it because spending it and investing it is a good thing. We've raised over $150 million in this cycle so far. This has allowed us to make key investments in staff, technology, state parties, voter protection, political programs, and, unfortunately by necessity, litigation. The DNC has worked hard to convert cash earlier than ever into political assets, rather than hoarding that cash in DC. We use those political assets so we can win up and down the ballot all across the country in 2026 and be prepared for the beginning of a presidential cycle thereafter. The committee was also presented with a detailed review of both our grassroots and major donor fundraising initiatives. As you all know, the chair has made a commitment to a more open and transparent budget oversight and review process. I've been engaged with this committee for over 8 years now, and I'm pleased to report that the chair's commitment was clearly demonstrated in our meeting yesterday morning. So, Mr. Chair, we thank you for your support of the committee, and Doris and I look forward to reporting back to you more at the winter meeting. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so
much. Before I let Chris get out of the spotlight a little bit, I do want to share an announcement with all of you that I gave to the executive committee yesterday. Chris has been an incredible steward on both the Budget Oversight and Review Committee as well as our National Finance Committee, serving as one of the National Finance co-chairs. His support, leadership, and counsel, both to me and to many of you, has been invaluable to both our party as a whole and to many folks who have the privilege to work alongside of him. When I was first elected, I announced that Congresswoman Beatty, Stuart Applebaum, and Chair Shasti Conrad would be joining our leadership team as associate chairs. Since then, as all of you know, Shasti has been elected to be a vice chair, leaving 2 associate chairs. And so today, I am proud to announce that I will be making Chris Lowe the 3rd associate chair of the Democratic National Committee. Thank you, Chris. Congratulations. And thank you for your service to our party. At this point, I would now like to welcome to the stage our fantastic Vice Chair, Malcolm Kenyatta from the great state of Pennsylvania, to introduce our Resolutions Committee co-chairs.
Good afternoon.
So I just want to say, first of all, you just did something historic. We just did something historic together by passing this calendar. But I do want to say, for folks who may watch this later if they're bored, or for the reporters who might still be here, when they see a party have people speaking for and against in American politics, they love to say, look how divided Democrats are. But a part of why they get so confused is that Democrats are not a part of a cult. We don't worship a guy with swollen ankles and melting hands. We have big, hearty debates about our country and about the future that we believe in. And there is no such debates than the ones that we have every single meeting in the Resolutions Committee. Big, important debates about the ideas that make America, America. And I'm so grateful that we have stewarding that conversation the incredible co-chairs of the Resolutions Committee, my dear friends, Ron Harris and Yoli Bejarano.
You're very tall. Thank you, Vice Chair Kenyatta. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to serve as co-chair of the Resolutions Committee alongside my awesome co-chair, Ron Harris. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for everything you do every single day to strengthen our party, to ensure that we are ready to do what matters most, which is win in November up and down the ballot, which is what we're gonna do. So, we are here to present the report of the Resolutions Committee. The Resolutions Committee met Thursday morning to consider the resolutions included in the Secretary's 14-day mailing. We reviewed 32 message resolutions and 14 commemorative resolutions. The committee gave these resolutions serious attention and debate. These resolutions were sent to the full membership yesterday and are recommended by the committee for approval. I'll now turn it over to my co-chair to take a moment to highlight some of these resolutions, not because the others matter less, but because we think it is important that everyone in this room hears the breadth of what your fellow DNC members brought forward.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. As she said, my name is Ron Harris, the other co-chair of the Resolutions Committee, and as she stated, I'm not going to read you the entire list, but we want to share with you what your fellow members wrote, because from every corner of this party, these resolutions, to me, read as an attempt to answer the question, whose country is this? It's the country of the family trying to lower their costs while the well-connected cash in. Our chairman, Ken Martin, wrote that resolution along with the resolution honoring the union members who build our prosperity. It's the country of the black voters in Louisiana and all across the South whose representation hangs in the balance right now. That resolution was written by Donna Brazil. She brought that one to us. It's the country of the 42 million Americans that this administration is trying to actively deny food assistance, and of people sleeping outside in cities that would rather criminalize poverty than end homelessness. The resolution was put together by the Poverty Council. This is the country of organizers in Indian country. That was put together by Donovan Hawk of Montana. This is the country of Americans in the territory still waiting on the full promise of citizenship. Chairman Luis Davila Perez of Puerto Rico brought that to us. It's the country whose 250th birthday belongs to the people still working to fulfill its principles, not to an administration actively betraying them. Chair of High School Democrats Milan Van Dam wrote that one. And it is a country whose story already has a hero, not its elected officials, not its policies, not its programs, but the American people themselves. That was my resolution, and I stand by it. Now, we'll also be honest with you. Nobody's rent got cheaper or childcare got cheaper as a result of us passing resolutions this week. Nobody's line at the pharmacy got shorter as a result of these resolutions. A resolution is simply just a promise on paper, and right now Americans have a drawer full of paper. What they're actually waiting on from us is our presence. These 46 resolutions will matter exactly as much as how we show up for those things when we leave this building. Year-round and every single zip code, long after the cameras leaves and we get on the flight home. But why I'm hopeful is because your members did not write these resolutions because they're easy to write. They wrote them because they still believe that this party can say something true and mean it. And then they're willing to go out and prove those things to be true. So let's adopt these resolutions today, and let's go do the hard work of making them real. The people are watching us, the voters are watching us, and it is our job to continue to remind them whose country this is really for. So, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Resolutions Committee, I move the adoption of this report. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Chair Ron Harris and Chair Yoli Bejarano. The Resolutions Committee report is in front of the body. At this point, all those in favor, say aye. Any opposed, say nay. The resolutions are adopted. Thank you so much to both of you. Okay. I'm now going to bring up to the stage our fantastic Vice Chair for Civic Engagement and Voter Protection. To remind you, the work that she does day in, day out is so important right now. It is really critical, if you're not involved in our election protection efforts, that you talk to Hurley Rosemond, who heads our department, or you find Raina, because we need all of you in this room to really get engaged in this work, given how existential and critical this upcoming election is. Please welcome our Vice Chair for Civic Engagement and Voter Participation, Raina Walters-Morgan.
Good afternoon, Democrats. I will be very brief. We have 80 days until Election Day, and we are all fired up and ready to go, and we are going to elect Democrats up and down the ballot. But I want us to remember that information is power, and a knowledgeable voter is an empowered voter. And our empowered voters will not be intimidated by Trump or his threats. We are going to turn out in record numbers in November to hold these irresponsible Republicans accountable. Yes. So my ask for you today is to please, please, please utilize and share our important voter education resources. Go to iwillvote.com to share information to voters about how they can cast their ballots, and share our National Voter Assistance Hotline information, 1-833-DEM-VOTE, 1-833-336-8683, or your state-specific hotline information. Please do that this November, because we will ensure that every eligible voter can cast a ballot that counts. Thank you.
We're in the home stretch here. So next I would like to introduce a great congressman from this state, Congressman Lloyd Doggett. Lloyd has been a true champion and steadfast voice for Central Texas in Congress for many years. Please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to Congressman Lloyd Doggett.
Well, good afternoon. I hope that each of you in the last few days has had an opportunity to both enjoy the only town here that I've ever called home and to have a very productive meeting. Thank you genuinely for the service that you provide our country in this very troubling time. As leaders of the Party of Hope, I join you today from my standpoint as a capitalist concerned about the excesses that we've yet to control in capitalism. As a Zionist committed to Israel, while appalled by the continuing war crimes of Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir, and the role of AIPAC in becoming a giant laundry to place Republican dollars in Democratic primaries. And I come also as a member of the executive boards of both the Congressional Progressive Caucus and the CPC PAC, concerned that our progressive candidates not supply more ammunition to our adversaries. I've often applauded my good friend Jim Hightower, who declared the only thing in Texas in the middle of the road is a yellow stripe, and a few dead armadillos. He's referring to the kind of Democrats that I struggle with sometimes and call corporatocrats because they protect big pharma and tax cheats in corporate America. But it's also important to remember that while his comments about moderates were popular here in my hometown, Jim lost his next statewide election to a fellow named Rick Perry. Texas Republicans have given me a unique opportunity personally to see so much of the state, gerrymandering me again and again, from here to Mexico, from here to the conservative towns outside Houston, from here to San Antonio for a decade, and finally back here at home. I think I'm the only person from Texas to ever represent 4 congressional districts, 10, 25, 35, and now 37. And while my progressive values have never changed, the way I present them and express those values and the priorities I set is not always the same in another place as it might be here in Austin, because the parts of our state are very different in their needs and their priorities. So with the most corrupt president in American history, who has no idea of how to get out of the war that he launched that is causing so much human loss and causing so many challenges for American families with the price of most everything going up all the time, we could be part of a genuine wave election to throw the rascals out. And we got a lot of rascals up there. But spreading our big Democratic tent to include Democrats of all political persuasions, including some we might not always like, less attacking one another, being less maneuvering for 2020 or 2028 before we get through 26, and more focus on the endless wrongs of this Trump regime, combined with our offering hope and being the party of hope through the pragmatic solutions that we've got. That's a path to victory. That's a path to saving our democracy and preventing Trump from converting it into an autocracy. And while we need to encourage younger generations to be full partners in our Democratic Party, we've not always done all that well with those who are 65 and older voters. Just as sexism and racism are a path to defeat, so is ageism. Without the participation of all generations, we're not going to be successful in overcoming the flood of Republican money that is already outpouring. So let's harness the conflicts and sometimes the contradictions within ourselves and within our party to save our country. Here in Texas, we have a truly remarkable opportunity with James Tallarico, with Gina Hinojosa, Vicki Goodwin, and our other members of the statewide slate. I'm pleased to be here this afternoon also, to be kind of the warm-up act for my friend Ro Khanna, who's been doing an outstanding job of spreading our progressive message across the country. And a warm-up also for our state House Democratic leader, Gene Wu, who led Democrats to Chicago to focus national attention on Trump's wrongdoing. As we urge the Texas state Democrats to break quorum and head north, we received some strong words of encouragement from the DNC. And now is the time, only 80 days before election, to turn those words into additional resources for here in Texas. Because this is really a now or never time. That's why I'm making a personal investment, practicing what I preach by donating dollars to help assure a Texas House victory. Trump has become really the intimidator in chief. And I find that while he's intimidated lots of businesses, lots of public institutions, the very first place that he intimidated was with my Republican colleagues and Republican elected officials across the country. In fact, as we say here in Texas, Texas Republican elected officials are so cowed you can almost hear them moo. I think that the Texas House is so important this time because what's about to happen is that following the awful Supreme Court decision, they're going to redistrict the Texas House again. They plan to reduce the number of Democrats in the Texas congressional delegation to 6. And if they have a majority, to continue doing that as Texas picks up 3 or 4 additional members of Congress and electoral votes in 2030 with the census. So I think this is now or never to assure that doesn't happen because we're not that far from gaining a House majority and a check on the government that we have here. So if we can move forward together and prevent that from happening, we begin to change Texas, and I think then the country and the world. So let's unite with more energy and determination than ever, and in the words of my friend Barbara Jordan, to achieve an America as good as our promise. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. You too, absolutely. We have two more speakers left, and at this point, it is my pleasure to welcome Congressman Ro Khanna, who proudly represents California's 17th Congressional District and is a strong advocate for working Americans everywhere. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Congressman Ro Khanna.
Well, thank you, Ken, for your leadership. Let's give Ken Martin a round of applause for the extraordinary job that he's been doing. And thank you to Lloyd Doggett, a towering intellect in our Congress. Let's give Lloyd a round of applause. I'm a proud Democrat, but I did not come here today just to celebrate the Democratic Party. I came here to speak from my heart about what it means to live up to our values. Our strongest tradition is the fight for economic democracy. It runs from Thomas Jefferson's distrust of concentrated financial power through William Jennings Bryan's defense of producers against Eastern capital to FDR's New Deal. It lives in Johnson's Medicare and Medicaid, and it lives in Barack Obama's Affordable Care Act. This is the tradition that says our party fights for an economy that works for people who work, not just for the capital class. In the 1960s, this tradition still had force. A. Philip Randolph, Bayard Rustin, and Dr. King built on FDR's 4 freedoms with the Freedom Budget, a plan for full employment, decent wages, health care, and for housing. That was Dr. King. But here's the reality. The Freedom Budget was never enacted. Civil rights advanced, economic rights were postponed. Our party began losing its way in the 1970s, right around the time I was born. Stagflation fueled an anti-government fervor, and too many of us decided that the only way to survive politically was to accommodate it, to accept the ideological overcorrection that government itself was the problem. And accommodate we did. We supported financial deregulation and backed free trade deals that led to deindustrialization. We urged people to leave their hometowns for financial and technology sectors. We stopped being the party of Main Street and became the party of Wall Street. We kept the language of justice while abandoning the project of economic democracy that Randolph and King had put on the table. A lot of people now say that our party needs to be bold again. I agree. But calling for boldness without an agenda is just branding. I'm tired of the platitudes. I'm tired of consultant-crafted focus group language saying we need to be about affordability or renewing the American dream, delivered without the specific policies to make them real that FDR or King fought for. I did not come to Washington to do messaging. I came to fight for a real agenda. Medicare for all. Tax the billionaires. No foreign wars. When we fight instead of platitudes, Trump's coalition can crack. We saw it with the Epstein Files Act. I stood with survivors and worked with Thomas Passy to pass the most consequential legislation a Democrat has in Trump's second term. It is the moment when Trump's presidency began to unravel. That is the kind of substantive politics I believe in. I come from the economic patriotism wing of the Democratic Party, the New Deal wing of the Democratic Party. We believe a national economic project is our path back from the wilderness. We see that America is at a breaking point, and that if we do not offer a new economic bargain, well, we will break. We understand, and I mean this with no offense, we understand that those who have lost 2 elections to Trump are no experts on electability and have no standing to tell a new generation of Democrats that their ideas for justice are too radical. We are for the working class over the Epstein class. Our vision for this party is to deliver America's next New Deal. What does that mean? It means Medicare for all. No more excuses, no more half measures, free universal health care for every American now. It means free child care for America. For $80 billion that we spent in Iran, we could do that today. A decent life requires good jobs in communities that people actually live in. That is why we need a national industrial development bank that rebuilds places hollowed out, whether it's in North Country, New Hampshire, Johnstown, Milwaukee, Bessemer, towns across this country. If China can invest $1.5 trillion in a national industrial bank, why can't we? It means 1,000 new trade schools across America, 1,000 new trade schools and tech centers to have next generation of jobs. Here's another simple idea. Hardworking Americans should be able to buy a home. How about we do this? A home by 35. If you work 7 years and you earn the right to buy a home with 0 down payment and low interest loans, it's the same deal we give our veterans. Put young people in homes again. Now, here's what the Republicans will say. By the way, they called FDR a communist too. They called him a communist in disguise, and they called that Dr. King that too. 2 of the greatest leaders of the 20th century. But here they'll say, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? Now take it from the guy from Silicon Valley. I've got a clear idea. Tax the billionaires. All 989 of them. That's not the 1%. That's not the 0.1%. It's not the 0.01%. It's the 0.001%. And you tax them at 5%, you raise $4 trillion. Some say, Roe, you're calling for taxing the billionaires. It's class warfare. I've got news for them. The billionaires have already been waging a class war. They are decimating unions. They are outsourcing jobs. They are putting costs of homes out of reach. America has been in a 5 decades class war since the 1970s. It's time to get off the sidelines and show whose side we are on. Nearly 100 billionaires live in my district. They didn't like me because I was for the 5% California tax because I believe we should pay for poor kids' health care instead of them. Well, they ran a $1 million candidate against me because I supported the tax. I won 63-6. So here's my question. If the guy representing 1/3 of the nation's wealth in Silicon Valley can be taxing the billionaires, how is this a hard vote for 434 other members of Congress? The same class fight is now playing out with AI. This is not complicated. We must be on the side of the workers. A party against oligarchy must stand with Teamsters over Tesla, truck drivers over big trucks. Just like planes have pilots, trucks should have drivers. Tax agentic AI and robots more than human workers. Stop data centers in residential communities. Protect workers from being fired with collective bargaining rights so that they have union rights. Democrats must put workers first in an AI age. And when I say we stand with workers, that includes our friends and neighbors who prepare our food, build our homes, and care for our children. That is why we must abolish ICE. It is a cruel, rogue agency. It is an agency, and you know this, that murdered Lorenzo Salgado. Replace ICE with an immigration agency like we had from the New Deal until George W. Bush that works under justice. Here's what I want to say about this. When they shot Lorenzo, and I don't know if you saw his kids, well-educated, polite kids. When they shot Lorenzo, a construction worker, a 52-year-old father with 3 polite, well-raised children, they shot the American dream. That's what they shot, those ICE officers. I'm almost done, because I've got my 10 minutes, so I'm just not giving Ken a heart attack here. The skeptics will say we cannot pass this agenda because of money in politics. They have a point. Our party must lead the fight to get money out of politics. That's why I support Ken Martin. No super PAC spending in Democratic parties, primaries, none, not now, not in 2028. There is no reconciliation in America without accountability. The bankers who caused the great financial crash in 2008, they belong in jail. The officials who lied us into the Iraq war, they need investigation. The Justice Department should never have delayed the January 6 cases that led Trump back into power. And so here's what I can say. When we take back the House, when we take back the Senate, we subpoena, we investigate, and we prosecute. We hold accountable the powerful who stole from this nation, who doged this nation, and who kill innocent people on the streets in this nation. Accountability doesn't just stop at our borders. October 7th was a horrific terrorist attack, and it must be condemned unequivocally. But Israel has committed a genocide in Gaza, and we should have the courage to say so. I saw the apartheid system in the West Bank when I was detained there. Zero aid to Israel. No military sales of weapons used to kill civilians. And let me be clear, if our party cannot stand for these principles, it will never convince a generation that watched the horrors of Gaza on their iPhones that we mean what we say about justice. Fortunately, America has a remarkable capacity for self-correction. Look, like all of you, I believe in this country. My grandfather fought for justice, and he went to jail twice as part of Gandhi's independence movement. Today, his grandson serves in the Congress, representing arguably the most economically consequential district in the world. I never thought I would get there. I was born in Philadelphia, our bicentennial year. Teachers and Little League coaches believed in me. My mother believed in me so much and believed in America that she would stay up late into the night with note cards of big English words, sure that if I learned every English word, maybe I would just have a shot in this country. My father would rise before dawn to go to work and still be present at every Little League game, even though I couldn't hit the ball for anything. All they asked of me was hard work and that I show up. This country gave me and my family a chance to succeed. I want a country where every American has the same chances that I had growing up. That's all. That requires a Democratic Party ready to reclaim its moral purpose and to stand for economic democracy against oligarchy. A party ready to lead the future with America's next New Deal. Let us be the party that calls on America to be bigger. Let us build an agenda that heals the divides between those who own capital and those who work with their labor, between the coasts and the factory towns, between the America that feels forgotten and the America that feels seen. Democrats, this is our generation's time to answer history's call. You and I have our moment to write this next chapter, so one day they will say about us that we saved this country and did our part to build a more perfect union. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being in the fight.
I am now pleased to welcome another Texan to the stage, Texas House Democratic Minority Leader Gene Wu. And let me say, Leader Wu helped steer the historic walkout against the Republican redistricting plan last year. We are happy to have him here with us today. He's a true patriot, someone who stood up against this Trump administration's illegal attempts to gerrymander. Please welcome our great House leader here in Texas, Leader Gene Wu.
Howdy, y'all. Those y'all not from here, welcome to Texas. Listen, a year ago this day, Texas Democrats left this state to block Donald Trump. We didn't see ourselves as anything special. We weren't big shots and we weren't celebrities. We were just local state reps who swore an oath to defend their communities. And Donald Trump had called on Greg Abbott not to say, hey, great job, way to lead the state, but to say, give me 5 more seats. Not because a court ordered it, not because the people demanded it, but because the king wanted it. The emperor demanded it. Donald Trump wanted more power because he knew that his policies and the policies being pushed by Republicans were so damn unpopular with the entire country. They were doing everything the American people hated, and they knew that. But Donald Trump wanted more power. He knew that he couldn't keep going without it. And Greg Abbott, our governor, instead of honoring his oath to the Constitution, to the nation, to his state, he bent the knee and said yes. Yes to the king who demanded we turn over our democracy. Texas Democrats saw this and said, hell no. So we denied Greg Abbott a quorum. We left our families, we left our homes, our jobs, and even our state. And what followed was unlike anything we had ever experienced and ever done before. Greg Abbott was on TV calling us quitters and losers. He asked the Texas Supreme Court to remove us from office. He sent troops to come find us. He issued arrest warrants for us. He put cars and spies in front of our homes to track us down. His supporters published our personal information. They doxed us. They sent us bomb threats. They sent us pizzas to our homes in the name of the Minnesota shooter. They called for me to be denaturalized, arrested, and deported because we stood up. There were legal threats, there were illegal threats, and there was everything in between during this time. But none of it worked. We didn't back down because we couldn't back down. Because what Texas Democrats were fighting for wasn't for Texas Democrats. It was for our people. It was for our state, for our communities, for the people we swore an oath to protect. We did not forget our oaths. And what we learned during that fight was so important. Not just that when we're together and we're united, that we can win, but this fight belongs to everybody. That when Republicans attack Muslims for their faith and say, you don't belong here, you shouldn't be allowed to be here, that is our fight. When ICE terrorizes Latino families and murders our neighbors in broad daylight, that is our fight. When Republicans destroy Black power, Power that the community has spent literally decades building. Power paid for with blood. That is our fight as well. When Asian Americans are having their civil liberties taken away, being told they can't own property, they can't go to school, they can't work, they can no longer stay in this country, that is our fight as well. Because we know that all these struggles, all these fights, they're not separate. They're the same fight. Because we know that while they may use different weapons against different communities, we have seen this time and time again that eventually they will turn those weapons on everyone else. None of us can afford to lock ourselves in silos and only speak up when we are attacked. The same politicians who will target Muslims will later attack everyone else. The same politicians who attack black people will come take power away from everyone else as well. What they seek to do is divide us because they know that if we are united, if we turn not against one another, but turn towards one another, we win. It's more than we should not let ourselves be divided, but we should actively pull ourselves together and unify. The fight of one community must be the fight of every community here. I am proud to be Asian American. I am proud of the AAPI community. But I am also very proud to stand right beside the black community, the Muslim community, the immigrant community, the LGBTQ community, the Jewish community, and every community in this country that has a boot on their neck. We may come from different places. We may worship differently. We may speak different languages at home. But we share a common future, and we share a love of this country. The people here, that is why I'm proud. What makes America great is not money, it's not military power, it's Americans. We make America great. I love this country with all of my heart. I love the promise of what America brings. We will never allow Donald Trump or Greg Abbott or anyone else to tell me or tell anyone that someone else doesn't belong because of their religion, because of their skin color, or where they're from. Because this country belongs to all of us. And when we stand together, there is no threat, no tactic that can defeat us. Folks, our resistance, our actions last year helped spark the fight. We lit a match, and that fire began to spread across the country. And we hoped that a different breed of Democrat would come out of it. People would watch us and see, yes, you can fight, you can resist, you can stand up. And you can refuse to wait for permission. You can do it now. This fight began with legislators, and now it must end with a victory at the ballot box. Texas lit the match of change last summer. This November, Texas can deliver that change. We can elect Gina Hinojosa and finally replace Governor Abbott. We can win back our majority in the Texas House and finally put the people's house back in the hands of the people. We can send James Talarico to the United States Senate. Do not let anyone tell you that Texas cannot change. We have already changed the national conversation. we are going to change who holds power next. Because this is not about whether American people still have the power to choose their own future. This November, we will send Donald Trump, Greg Abbott, and Ken Paxton, and every politician who tried to steal our power, tried to steal our democracy, we will send them a message so loud they cannot ignore it. You cannot threaten your way to the future. You cannot divide your way to the future. You cannot cheat your way to the future. In a democracy, politicians do not get to choose their people. The people choose their politicians. Let's take this country back for everyone. Let's go.
Thank you again to Leader Wu. Before we close out our business today, I just want to say thank you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this truly historic day. We won't be meeting again until, February. January. I'll let Jason say that in just a moment. But we've got 80 days left, folks. 80 days until this election. And I know I'll see many of you in your states over those next 80 days. But I just wanted to again say thank you on behalf of a grateful party for the work that was done here in this room today. And with that, I would like to recognize Secretary Ray for any announcements. Mr. Secretary.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I am excited to share the date of our winter DNC meeting. We will be gathering January 28th to 30th in Washington, D.C. So I look forward to seeing you all in January. For those that were at the Executive Committee meeting yesterday, the Executive Committee will also be meeting on December 12th in Orlando, Florida.
Okay, you heard that, January 28th through 30th in Washington, D.C., so bring your coats, okay? All right, and with that, I would like to introduce the Associate Chair of the Democratic National Committee, Stuart Applebaum, to introduce our benediction.
Thank you, Ken. Before I make the introduction, I'd like to ask everyone to join me in thanking the workers at this hotel, members of Unite Hair, Local 23. They help make our meetings this week so successful, and we're grateful to them. We began today's meeting with an invocation to guide us through our deliberations. And it is only appropriate to conclude this meeting with a benediction as we leave, inspired to do the work to elect Democrats up and down the ballot. Vicente L. Coatney II is the assistant pastor of Greater Mount Zion Baptist Church here in Austin, under lead pastor Galen Clark. Vicente previously served as the pastor of Assimilation and the director of University Ministries, where he supported millennial and Gen Z students across several Central Texas universities. Vicente holds a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies from Texas State University, San Marcos, and a Master of Theology from Liberty Baptist Theological Seminary. He is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. He resides in Austin with his wife, Lady Joanna Daniels Coatney, and their two sons, Vicente III and Jackson Lee. His work is guided by Ephesians 3:20. Now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us. Vicente Coatney.
What an historic, long, amazing day this has been. But as we close our time together, I would that you would, as an act, just to get your body moving, would you lift your hands really quickly and receive the benediction? And as we do so not as a sign of surrender, but we do so as a sign of victory, like a fighter who has won the biggest fight of their career. And we do this because we know that the moments that are ahead of us are gonna be a fight. And as we close, I wanna make a declaration that many of us have heard before, but I want you to hear them with fresh ears. The Apostle Paul declares in Romans chapter 8, verse 31, if God is for us, who can be against us? Now, the reality is that for many of us, when we've heard this verse, we've heard it and quoted it and used it in times of trouble and pain and quoted it when the enemy appeared against us. And we have used this verse from a position of defense. God is for us. And that's true. And that's real. But I want you to hear them with fresh ears, not as a shield, but I want you to hear it as a new strategy. Listen to it again, but listen to it with fresh ears. If God's before us, which is to suggest that God is not just with us, but God has gone before us. God is not standing beside us alone, wringing his hands, trying to figure out what's going to happen in the midterms or in the presidential election. God is already moving on our behalf. God is already shifting and changing and going into rooms that we have yet to go into and reach hearts that have yet to be reached and go into states that have yet to be flipped. And while we are strategizing today, God has already gone into the not yet of our tomorrow. And I want to declare, Democrats, that he has cleared the way for us, which means we're not walking into the unknown. No, we're walking with this as our posture going forth as a sign of victory, because we are claiming territory that God has already claimed for us. If God is for us, then who? Not fear, not lies, not bigotry, not racism, not sexism, not voter suppression, not hatred, not misogyny, not homophobia or xenophobia, not political violence, not cynicism, not even Trump can be against us. For greater is the God who goes before us than any force that tries to stand against us. And so send us, Lord, in strength and tenacity and in unity and a renewed sense of hope. And we pray this prayer in the name of the sable-skinned, sandals-wearing, hard-working carpenter who came from a ghetto called Nazareth and who fled under the cover of night to cross the borders into Egypt to escape state-sanctioned terror, in the name of the one who Scripture reminds us flipped over unjust tables and challenged corrupt systems, who fed 4,000 and 5,000 and comfort the brokenhearted, in the name of the one who provided healing for a woman who had an issue of blood for 12 years and didn't send her home with a medical bill that she wasn't able to pay back, in the name of the one who came to declare good news to the poor. In that name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much, Reverend, for that great benediction. And members, our business is now completed. We will reconvene on January 28th through the 30th in Washington, D.C. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, meeting adjourned.